We present Kenneth Williams, Derek Nimmo, Clement Freud, and Sheila Hancock in Just a Minute. And as the minute waltz fades away, here to tell you about it is our chairman, Nicholas Parsons.
Thank you very much, and welcome once again to Just a Minute. And as you've just heard, we welcome back Sheila Hancock to do battle with these three impossible players of the game. And I'm going to ask them all to speak, if they can, for just a minute on some unlikely subject, without hesitation, without repetition, and without deviating from the subject in any way at all. And if they can do that for 60 seconds, they will regain a point. If anybody challenges them during that time, and I uphold the challenge, the person who challenges will receive a point and take over the subject. If not, the person who's speaking will gain a point and continue with the subject. That is how we play the game. That is how we try to score. And that is how we hope we will continue. And let us begin with Kenneth Williams. Oh, he's
yes,
excited already.
Yeah.
Well, yes, what a perfect subject to begin with, Kenneth. Appearing in public. Can you talk for 60 seconds on that subject, starting now?
This is something which everyone does, of course, just by walking down the street. And I suppose that it can be generally assumed that most people are used to doing it. The thing to do is to appear reasonably well-dressed. It's no good going around with your trousers around your ankles or anything like that. You must be well-dressed. In town, the assumption must be a lounge suit. Of course, at the weekends, I think it's reasonable to don a blazer and flannel, sometimes referred to as bags. Always amuses me, that.
And Sheila Hancock, you have challenged. Why?
Deviation. He's talking about trousers, not about appearing in public. And clothes.
Yes, he was, but he was talking about his appearance in public. I think it's utterly justified. And I think it's all important, your appearance in public too, Kenneth.
Yeah.
So right.
He's just given us a description of his wardrobe.
Well, let's... yes, anyway, he has a point for that, because I don't agree with your challenge, Sheila. And Kenneth continues with 26 seconds left for appearing in public, starting now.
And as that brilliant Roman Cicero remarked, ladies, of course, abroad should be allowed to wear makeup. Men, when they walk abroad, no.
Clement Freud, you've challenged.
Two broads.
There were two broads. I thought it was for hesitation, which was also there. So I agree with the challenge, Clement. You have a point, and you have 17 seconds left for appearing in public, starting now.
Appearing in public is a very easy thing to do. In fact, what is difficult is disappearing while people are watching. Being seen in front of the common masses is something which many of us are very used to.
Well, that whistle tells us that 60 seconds is up, and whoever is speaking when the 60 seconds is up gains another point. In this case, it was Clement Freud. Sheila Hancock, will you begin the second round for us? A very topical subject for today, hippies. Would you talk on that for 60 seconds, if you can, starting now?
Well, I feel very well equipped to talk about hippies because way back in my dim youth, I was a hippie, or as we were called in those days, a beatnik. And what I mean is I used to go around with bare feet, and I hitchhiked all over the country, and I slept rough occasionally. And the thing that we believed in, and I think the hippies still believe in now, is that work is not the sacred thing that everybody makes it out to be. I think work, when you have a vocation, probably is, but the hippies think that work of standing in front of a factory belt...
Derek Nimmo, you challenged. Why?
Hesitation.
There was, and there were 3 lots of work, too.
Yes, I know. I was waiting for them to do that.
I think that's why she hesitated. She thought you should...
Still, I like the unloading of the philosophy. I like it. It's jolly nice.
Well, it was very sporting of you not to have challenged in that case.
Yes, I'm gallant.
I thought it was a work song.
Anyway, Derek Nimmo has a point, because I agree with his challenge, and there are 31 seconds left for hippies. Derek, starting now.
Well, of course, I've always wanted to appear in public as a hippie. I'd like to stand in the middle of Trafalgar Square, or preferably, I suppose, Piccadilly Circus, in lovely little feathery things round my neck, and flowers and beads and chains, and bare feet, and wander up and down, and smoke those nasty cigarettes, and all the things that they do, but I can't, you see, because my wife won't let me. But apart from that, I think that it's a very noble thing to do. Who would want, by choice, to stand in, or...
Clement Freud, your buzz has gone on continuously, but...
No, it wasn't.
Mine.
Well, the green light came up.
Yes, I buzzed first, and Sheila
Yes, you did.
kept her foot.
Well, who got him first here?
I did.
Clement, and you were challenging for... Why?
I've honestly forgotten. It was a hesitation. It was hesitation.
Well, all right.
It was a long time ago.
I do like the people to justify it, and just in case I disagree with their actual challenge. So there are 8 seconds left for Hippies. Clement, starting now.
It must be admitted that some of my best friends are hippies and lived in 144 Piccadilly before they moved to a house in Endell Street from which they were evicted.
Once again, Clement Freud was speaking when the whistle went, so he gains that extra point, and he now has a very definite lead over all the others. Clement Freud, will you begin the third round for us? Scotch eggs. Can you talk about Scotch eggs with Clement for 60 seconds, starting now?
A Scotch egg is a portmanteau dish which comes to us from north of the border. There was a time when sausages, eggs, tomatoes and bacon were all served separately. But some Celt thought that the best thing to do would be to combine it into one single item. Soon after the Battle of Bannockburn, they used to take chipolatas and ram them into eggs. But this didn't work. So they got long, thin sausages and knitted them into sort of comforters, which they put around the egg. And while this was more successful, the people didn't think it was entirely to their liking, and so finally they thought,
and perhaps we shall never know. Derek Nimmo, you've challenged.
Well, unfortunately, he didn't think, so he was ahead.
He probably did, but he couldn't think what the Scotsman thought. So, there are 19 seconds left for Scotch eggs, Derek, starting now.
North of Dundee, there's a Rhode Island Red who regularly lays...
You challenged.
hesitation.
You have another point, Clement. 15 seconds for Scotch eggs, starting now.
You moisten your hands and get the sausage meat into small patties.
Derek Nimmo, you've challenged.
Repetition of sausage.
Sausage meat, you are right. Derek, you have another point. 14 seconds for...
It is endemic of a Scotch egg. You know, it is virtually the title.
Absolutely endemic, but Scotch eggs is the only thing you're allowed to repeat more than once in this round. There are 12 seconds for Scotch eggs, Derek, starting now.
And south of Aberdeen, there is an old cock who regularly goes to visit the aforementioned hen.
Clement Freud, you challenge. Why?
Deviation.
Why?
The juxtaposition of a cock and an egg.
I think that's one of those occasions when I give you a bonus point for cleverness and wit as well. Not 2 points, just 1 point for both. And leave the subject with Derek Nimmo with 5.5 seconds for Scotch eggs, starting now.
And so after these feathered chums have got together, they regularly lay Scotch eggs, which people find are terribly tasty, and they come from miles off.
Well, as Derek Nimmo was speaking when the whistle went, then he gets an extra point, and he's now in second place behind Clement Freud. Derek, will you begin the next round? Creating a precedent. Would you talk on that subject for 60 seconds if you can, starting now?
Well, I think if one was creating an American precedent, the most important thing to obtain would be rather wealthy grandparents, particularly of mixed religions and mixed races. They would breed those together, which eventually would produce a really rather splendid fellow who would educate at Harvard.
Sheila, you challenge.
I really was. It isn't a president, it's a precedent.
Yes, it is.
He's talking about a fella.
He is talking about it. I think he's rather cleverly taken the word and used a sort of varied pronunciation to be rather clever. So I think I'm justified in leaving it with Derek. So there are 45 seconds, Derek, to continue with creating a precedent, starting now.
I climbed up the Trafalgar Memorial very, very slowly for repetition.
Out of his own mouth, he's committed himself. Clement challenged. 40 seconds for create a precedent, starting now.
The way you create a precedent is to do something and then repeat it.
Derek, you challenged. Why?
Well, he's done it and he's repeated it. It says repetition.
I will give you a point for cleverness for your challenge.
No, I'd rather you have the subject.
And as you're so clever at this, Clement, we have the subject still with you. 35 seconds, creating precedent, starting now.
I jump up and go to my studio, where I fashion a precedent of marble and bulrushes. My wife admires this immensely and often...
Derek Nimmo, you challenge. Why?
Deviation.
Why?
It's got nothing to do with any sort of...
I disagree. I've never ever heard of a precedent being made out of bulrushes and bananas or whatever it was.
That is why it's a precedent.
That's too clever. I'm not going to judge on this. It needs the wisdom of more than one Solomon. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to ask you to be the judges. If you agree with Derek Nimmo's challenge, will you all please cheer? And if you disagree, will you all please boo? In other words, if you're on Clement Freud's side, you boo. If you're on Derek's side, you cheer. And will you all do it together now? I say the boos have it. Clement, you have another point. 25 seconds for created and Precedent starting now.
Rose bushes and rhododendrons are other media which are fantastically useful in the creation of such a precedent of which I have talked. But
Derek Nimmo, you challenged. Why?
He's already confessed that he's talked about it, says repetition.
That's another as clever challenges. This time, Derek, I think I must, in fairness, give you the benefit of the doubt. You take over the subject with 16 seconds left, starting now.
And so when I got to the top of the monument, I had a rose in my teeth, and then I jumped from the top, and I was the very first person ever to jump from the top of the Trafalgar Memorial with a rose in my teeth. And therefore I create...
Kenneth Williams, why have you challenged?
Deviation.
Why?
He's never done this. Therefore it's done.
A very clever challenge. You bet you've never done it. If you have, you must bring us proof next week, Derek. So, 6 seconds left for you, Kenneth Williams, starting now.
I was the only one at my school ever to get up onto a stage and speak all the lines that I previously learned without hesitation or deviation. It's a mark for me, isn't it?
It's a mark for you, yes.
I've gone into the lead.
You've got 2 marks now, yes.
Got in the lead.
No, you jumped into 3rd place.
Oh, dear.
Behind Derek Nimmo and Clement Freud. Kenneth Williams, will you begin the next round for
yes.
us? The subject is dancing. No, don't demonstrate, please.
No.
Dancing, 60 seconds, starting now.
This has always provided a source of great joy for the participants. Indeed, it was said by the poet, waltzing in Venice with you is not so easy to do. If you should take one more step than you oughter, you will be doing the waltz underwater, which of course is not something anyone should do. But I have trod the measure, as they say, gaily, in various places, sometimes in the ballroom, once on a stage, and I was the despair of the choreographer. He said it's 1, 2, 3, dear, but I kept going 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the next...
Oh, you challenged.
Go on.
Challenge. Go on, tell us.
2 1s, 2 2s, 2 3s.
Oh, that's true.
But admittedly only 1 4.
Yes, I was carried away.
I will never know what happened after that second 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, well, Clement Freud has 31 seconds for dancing, starting now.
Slow, slow, quick, quick, slow.
Oh, that was repetition. Quick, slow, you said.
Yes, yes, I think we're all with you on that. And you had the subject back with 26 seconds left for dancing, starting now.
On another occasion, I was asked to do the Velita down Oxford Street.
Sheila Hancock, why have you challenged?
Repetition on another occasion. There must have been a previous occasion.
That's a clever challenge, Sheila, because he already had his occasions. Once was on a stage, another occasion. So there are 24 seconds left for dancing, Sheila, starting now.
Well, there are all sorts of dancing. There's ballet dancing and athletic dancing and ballroom dancing.
And Clement Freud is challenged.
Yes, and there's repetition as well, isn't there?
Yes, there's a bit repetitive dancing. So there we have another point for you, Clement, and 18 seconds for dancing, starting now.
One evening, I performed the old-fashioned waltz in Trafalgar Square around a lion, witnessed by Lord Nelson, who had one eye bandaged up but managed to look down and see me traipsing...
Derek Nimmo, you've challenged. Why?
Hesitation.
Yes, there was very mild. It's difficult to judge sometimes, but I think it was just there. 5 seconds for you, Derek, on dancing, starting now.
Clad in 15 yards of silk tulle with sequins all over my arms and a great tiara on my head.
Clement Freud still in the lead, Derek Nimmo just behind in 2nd place, and Sheila Hancock begins the next round. Changing nappies, Sheila. Can you talk for 60 seconds on that particular subject starting now?
This is one of my least favourite occupations, but it has been made easier these days because you have paper nappies and services where you just take it off and chuck it to a man in a plastic bag and he takes it away and God knows what he does with it, but we hope he washes it. But if you do it the old-fashioned way, you take the rear end of a baby, you hold its legs up and you take a square...
Clement Freud, you challenged. Why?
Hesitation,
I'm afraid there was. Who's this man you in the plastic bag you chuck things at?
The nappy service. A man comes around in a van.
But you chuck them at him when he arrives.
Yes, you're so pleased to get rid of them.
Surprised he ever comes back again. Clement, there are 39 seconds for changing nappies, starting now.
Having 5 children, this is something which I've done very...
Derek Nimmo, you've challenged. Why?
Repetition.
That's one of those clever challenges which I think deserves a point, but I think because of the rules of the game as stated, I can't take the subject away. Clement keeps the subject. 36 seconds for changing nappies, starting now.
So when it isn't wind, it is invariably a nappy. You take the child and remove its soiled nappy from about its loins, get a new cloth and lay it down and fold it into a triangle and engage the behind smart...
Derek Kenneth and his wife who challenged.
I find it boring.
Perhaps you've never changed a nappy, Kenneth. Well, boring or not, we're still with Clement Freud then, so he has another point for that. 21 seconds, Clement, for changing nappies, starting now.
It's very wearing stuff. And you turn over...
Derek Nimmo, you've got him there first. Hesitation. Derek, you have changing nappies, 17 seconds left, starting now.
Totally disgusting, absolutely filthy, something that I never become engaged with at all if I can possibly avoid it. I just throw the things to one side and I call for somebody to go and do it properly, actually. Best thing to do is to plunge the baby straight into a bath of water, scrub it all over, toss it out.
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
Deviation, that isn't changing nappies, that's bathing the baby.
I think a very clever challenge. Clement, you have another point, and you have 4 seconds for changing nappies, starting now.
The main thing is that you get a dirty nappy and replace it by a clean one.
Derek Nimmo, you've challenged. Why?
Repetition of dirty nappy.
Yes,
and
we've
clean
had dirty nappy. Derek, you have another point. 1 second for changing nappies, starting now.
Smell.
Well, at the end of that round, Derek Nimmo and Clement Freud are battling out neck and neck for the lead. Clement is now 1 point ahead of Derek. Clement, will you begin the next round? Signing my autograph is the subject. You talk for 60 seconds on that, starting now.
It's an extraordinary thing that people expect me to sign my autograph because I have no idea what they're going to do with it if I gave it to them, which I don't. But just before I'm able to say, I'm sorry, I do not do this sort of thing, making it sound as if it were some filthy habit, they always say, it's not for me, it's for my little girl. Alternately, my granny would be so angry if I didn't get it. I wonder what would happen if I did sign my autograph. I suppose some mother would say to her child, if you don't shut up, I'll give you Clement Freud's autograph. Which is a very good reason, but I first started not doing it outside the Wembley Stadium on a cup final.
Sheila Hancock, you challenge. Why?
Deviation. He's talking about not signing his autograph.
Very clever challenge, Sheila. You have a point, and you have 20 seconds for signing my autograph, starting now.
I am always very ashamed when I sign my autograph because I never learned to write properly, because I went to a school where we learned to write printing, and then I went to a school where we did handwriting, and I never...
Derek Nimmo, you challenge. Why?
She went to 2 schools.
She went to 2 schools in that particular round. So, Derek, you have another point. 9 seconds for signing my autograph, starting now.
Well, I tend to start with a D, and then I go on to an E, and after that I put an R, and then finally an E, or not quite.
Clement Freud, you challenge.
2 E's.
Yes, the record. I was waiting. I was wondering if you're going to fall into the own trap you'd set for yourself, Derek. Clement, you have the subject back. 4 seconds for signing my autograph, starting now.
And this man came up to me and said, excuse me, sir, could I have your autograph? And I said, certainly. Can I just go on with this?
Yes, with
this is really
you
what
won't get a bonus point, that's all I can do.
This is what stopped me signing my autograph. I was standing outside Wembley, and there were about 20 people in a group, and one of them looked at me and told the others, and they all looked at me, and then one man detached himself, and he came up and said, excuse me, sir, could I have your autograph? And I was pleased, you know, and I said, certainly, and I signed, and he said, no, it isn't.
Kenneth Williams, will you begin the next round? What I have been warned against. There's a subject to set you thinking. And if you've thought now, will you begin for 60 seconds, starting now?
I haven't really thought about it at all, but like all courageous people, I will plunge in bravely and do my best to discuss this subject. What I was warned against, well, there were so many things. One was talking to strangers. Another one was accepting sweets from men. Now, consequently, I was always hanging about waiting for these things, these these confections to be offered to me, and they never were, of course. In the army, I was warned against disobeying. I did it on one occasion and consequently had to do my fatigues. I had to dress in denims and go and scrub out the barrack room. It was a disgrace. I mean, quite apart from anything else, superlative artists should never be put in.
Clement Freud, you're challenged. Why?
Hesitation.
Hesitation, yes. Another point to you, Clement. And there are 13 seconds left for what I have been warned against starting now.
I was warned by the producer against getting too close to Kenneth Williams because many people think you become contaminated and thereafter incapable of ordinary speech or free movement.
Sheila Hancock,
I'm not going to allow him to say that about Kenneth.
Oh, thank you. Lovely.
So
I've got close to Kenneth many times, and I've never been contaminated.
No, give him a true picture.
So
that's right.
So why are you challenging?
Oh, deviation or anything you can think of.
Well, or a deviation will do. All right. We agree that you can't get contaminated from Kenneth Williams. So Sheila Hancock has a point, and
I don't know what the subject is. What is it?
4 seconds left, Sheila, for what I have been warned against starting now.
Well, almost everything I have been warned about has been proved to be totally wrong.
Derek Nimmo, you challenge. Why?
Hesitation.
Hesitation.
Right,
So,
but I
Derek,
have
you
a
have the
stutter.
subject. What I have been warned against starting now.
I've been warned by the producer not to sit next to Sheila Hancock.
So at the end of that round, we're still in the same position. Clement Freud just one ahead of Derek Nimmo. Sheila Hancock, your turn to begin. The subject is chores. Will you talk for 60 seconds on that, starting now?
This is something I absolutely loathe, and I do anything I possibly can to avoid. I have every machine possible in my house to avoid doing chores.
Derek, why have you challenged?
Shaying off. Every machine possible.
That is not one of the rules of the game. All that happens is Sheila gets another point and continues with the subject for the next 52 seconds, starting now.
To avoid doing my dishwashing, I have something that you put in and it does it for you. I have a washing machine to do that for me. I have an electric vacuum cleaner.
Derek Nimmo, you
Well,
challenge.
she's not talking about chores. She's talking about the avoidance of doing chores. So it's deviation.
She's still talking about her chores, whether she's doing them or avoiding them. She's still on the subject of chores. So she has another point. And there are 43 seconds left for chores, Sheila, starting now.
Another thing that might be considered a chore is...
Derek Nimmo, you've challenged. Why? Ungallant.
You're just so ungallant, isn't it?
Vendetta.
I mean, she's hardly got her mouth open, has she?
No,
Hardly got her
hesitating.
mouth open.
Hesitant.
I've got a stutter.
Yes, she can't help
I
it.
must explain to the listeners that Sheila Hancock sits next to Derek Nimmo, and we all know that Derek has a stutter, which he uses very cleverly, not in this show but elsewhere. He's now passed it on to Sheila, which is utterly disgraceful. So Sheila has a point, and she continues with the subject. For 40 seconds, starting now.
I sometimes consider going to the theatre every evening and doing the same play and saying the same words is a bit of a chore and putting on my makeup, but for that I do get paid, so I don't mind doing it quite so much. Sometimes playing this game is a bit of a chore when you sit next to Derek Nimmo and he makes you stutter, but you have to put up with that as well because it's all part of the British spirit. However, when Clement Freud is there, it's also even more of a chore. Kenneth Williams is less of an inconvenience.
Kenneth Williams, you challenge. Why?
Well, I challenged because I thought she was deviating a bit.
Why deviating?
Yeah, she was deviating.
Well, the thing is, Clem, what I was trying is that she was definitely hesitating. She'd almost come to a full stop on your
I see.
name.
Oh.
But she was also, you cannot be a chore.
Yeah, I leave all that to you. After all, you've got to have rules.
Unfortunately, I have to leave the challenges to you, Kenneth, and the others. So you have a point because you are not devious, and you have the subject of chores. 15 seconds left, starting now.
My chores are manifold. First thing in the morning, there's the toothpaste. It's all got to be squeezed. Then there's the laces to be tied. It's a rich life, isn't it? Going down to the post. It's a
Clement Freud, you challenged. It was just there, but I think it was more intimidated hesitation. So Kenneth Williams still has another point, and there are 2 seconds left for chores, starting now.
combing my hair too is murder when you see all that.
Well, that, I'm afraid, is all we have time for in this particular edition of Just a Minute. Sheila Hancock was in 4th place, just behind Kenneth Williams, who was a little way behind Derek Nimmo, who was fractionally behind Clement Freud, who is this week's winner. We do hope that you've enjoyed this particular edition of Just a Minute, and from all of us here, goodbye.
The chairman of Just a Minute was Nicholas Parsons. The program was devised by Ian Messiter and produced by David Hatch. We present Kenneth Williams, Derek Nimmo, Clement Freud, and Andree Melly in Just a Minute. And as the minute waltz fades away, here to tell you about it is our chairman, Nicholas Parsons.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and welcome once again to Just a Minute. I'm going to ask each person to try and speak for 60 seconds on some unlikely subject for just a minute, without hesitation, without repetition, and without deviating from the subject in any way. If one of the others thinks they are guilty of one of these crimes, they may press their buzzer and challenge. If I uphold their challenge, I will give them a point, and they take over the subject. If I don't uphold their challenge, the person speaking gains a point and continues until the 60 seconds is up. That is the way we play, that is the way we score, and this week we're going to begin with Kenneth Williams. Kenneth, a lovely subject for you to start with, what I most desire. Would you try and talk for 60 seconds on that subject, starting now?
Well, in common with so many other great people, it is, of course, utopian, in the sense that it is a paradise, an island somewhere where falls no rain, nor any snow, nor ever wind blows loudly, but it lies deep meadowed happy there, with orchard lawns and bowery hollows crowned with summer sea, where I may heal me of my grievous wound, and my wound is grievous, for I have been most deeply humiliated, most deeply hurt, and moreover, I could tell you things make your hair curl. I was put through the most dreadful tantrums, and moreover, there...
Clement Freud, you challenged twice. Why?
No, I only challenged once.
I did once.
Oh, I see. Well, Chairman, your challenge came in first. Why did you challenge?
Deviation.
Yes, on what grounds?
Well, my hair couldn't curl to begin with.
I think there was quite a deal of deviation from what I most desire in that. So, Clement Freud, you have 1 point, because I agree with the challenge. You have 23 seconds left for what I most desire, starting now.
What I most desire is a small cottage in the country with roses round the door and somebody else's wife standing on the waiting to meet.
Derek Nimmo, you've challenged. Why?
Deviation, somebody else's wife.
Yes, I agree with you. I think it would be common to accept that this is a devious way to go along in the society as it is formed today, if you forgive my pomposity, but what else can I say?
It's only somebody else's wife to do for me. I mean,
That gets even worse, Clement Freud. So,
I prefer married staff.
I think you're getting even further embroiled. There are now 18 seconds, Derek Nimmo, for what I most desire, starting now.
What I most desire is a glass of water taken from a little burn outside Aberdeen, with the trout still swimming in the bottom of the glass. And there I could...
Kenneth Williams, why have you challenged?
Deviation, a trout could not swim in the bottom of that glass.
You're quite right, even a baby trout. So, Kenneth, you have the subject back. You have another point for that. And there are 8 seconds left for what I most desire, starting now.
Oh, I most desire to be totally uninhibited. Take it all off, I cry. Strip off the mask.
Derek Nimmo, why have you challenged?
Deviation.
I most desire?
But he's stripping it all off and throwing it everywhere.
Yes, well, all right, it may sound devious to you, but I mean, he's allowed to do it if he wishes.
Yes, I'm talking about me libido.
But if you keep your libido down for a little and continue with what I most desire for the next 3 seconds, starting now.
Oh, complete freedom for my soul, so that it may fly into space.
As Kenneth Williams was speaking, when the whistle went, it means that he gains a point. And at the end of that round, Kenneth has got a commanding lead of 2 over everybody else.
Hooray! Oh, that's marvelous. Oh, lackaday-roo.
Lackaday-roo, Mr. Kenneth Williams. I suggest you keep your finger firmly on your buzzer and see if you can maintain that lead. And Andree Melly, will you begin the next round? Making passes. 60 seconds starting now.
What you need is a lot of dynamite, a bit of elbow grease, a pickaxe or a bulldozer, and a large mountain, and you're away. On the other hand, you could have a pair of false eyelashes, a miniskirt, and you'd probably have a great success. Italy is supposed to be the country where passes are made at you all the time. I went there quite often, and nobody ever said Bella Bella and pinched my behind.
Derek Nimmo, you challenge. Why?
Reputation of Bella Bella.
Yes. So there we are. Your wonderful command of language loses you the subject, and a point for Derek Nimmo. 35 seconds left for making passes, Derek, starting now.
You see, you have to have one to enter my house. And how I make them is this. You see, I have a piece of green cardboard, and I print on the top, "This is the house of Derek Nimmo."
Andree, you've challenged. What?
Hesitation.
Hesitation, yes. So, Andree, you have 27 seconds for making passes, starting now.
You have printed on the top, "This is the house of Derek Nimmo," and then you press...
Clement, Freud, you've challenged. What?
Repetition of Derek Nimmo.
Yes, and the whole of that sentence, because we've had it once in this round. 24 seconds left for making passes, starting now.
It is often said that if you stand in Piccadilly Circus, all sorts of people will pinch you on the behind. In France, the men tend to go up to the ladies and say, "Mademoiselle, vous êtes si belle."
Andree Melly, you've challenged. Why?
Hesitation.
Yes, there was. There was also Bella.
But that's how they speak.
Well, all I can say is, Clement, your demonstration loses you the subject. Andree Melly, 10 seconds left, making passes, starting now.
At parties, the most usual opening gambit is, "Haven't we met before?" which people say to you when they know perfectly well they never have.
Kenneth and his wife, you challenged.
Deviation. This is a conversational gambit. It has nothing to do with making a pass.
Well, it depends on the way it is said. It is very difficult to judge on this, and I think this could be the opening to a pass or a pass in itself.
Well,
so I'm still with Andree, who has another point.
Well, I will defer to your judgment.
You're so helpful, Kenneth. 3 seconds left, starting now. Clement Freud, you've challenged. Why?
Hesitation.
Hesitation, Clement, you have a point. 2 seconds for making passes, starting now.
Get over there, you old cow, you say.
That last most revolting pass of Clement Freud's, which I hope brings him no success anywhere, has gained him 2 points because he was speaking as the whistle went and won for the challenge, and he now has a small lead over the rest of the...
Oh, I've lost my lead.
Yes.
Oh.
On Derek Nimmo, will you begin the next round? My forebears. That is the subject. 60 seconds, starting now.
Once upon a time, I went down to the wood with my 4 bears. There was a daddy one, a mummy, a baby, and a midget. And I went into our little house, and round the table was a big chair, a small chair, a middle-sized one, and a dwarf one. I sat on the first one. It was too hard. I sat on the second. It was too soft. I sat on the third. It was just right, but I transferred my affections to the little tiny weeny one, and that was even better. And then on the table was a bowl of oats, and I tasted the first bowl belonging to those furry creatures that I've been talking about on quadruplet, and there the first one was too hot, and the second one was too cold, the third was just right, but the teeny-weeniest one of all was the nicest of the lot.
Andree Melly, why have you challenged?
A repetition, because he's been eating so many lots of...
I'm sorry, Derek, I love the story, actually. So there are 11 seconds left, Andree, for you to carry on with my forebears, starting now.
Great Uncle Willie was my favourite. When he died, he was with his maid, who was called Davis, and he looked up and he said to her, "Oh, hell," and then he died.
At the end of that round, we have an interesting situation. Andree Melly, who's not with us regularly, has taken the lead just in front of the others. Clement Freud, will you begin the next round? Getting on with other people. Will you try and talk on that subject for 60 seconds, starting now?
Getting on with other people is something which is very simple if you are of a magnanimous and generous phrase of mind and a bent such as Kenneth Williams would show to people. Oh, challenge.
Derek Nimmo, challenge. Why?
Hesitation.
There was hesitation. I thought it was deviation when he was talking about his bent mind, but there we are. 46 seconds for you, Derek Nimmo, to go on with getting on with other people, starting now.
Well, of course, it's terribly important, I think, to get on with other people. I make a point of it. Every time I go on the underground, I say, "What ho, how are you, folks?" And people are always terribly pleased when you wave them a cheery wave. And then you sit beside them and you say, "How are you today?"
Kenneth Williams, why have you challenged? Yes, there was a hesitation there, only just, but there we are.
Oh, sitting down, you know.
So, in this game, you haven't got time for such niceties. There are 33 seconds left for getting on with other people, Kenneth, starting now.
I think one of the secrets is to give them the impression that they are finer than the real facts would merit. And I think that the more you assure people of their finer qualities, the more fine
Nimmo,
they will
challenged.
become in the process.
Nimmo, why
Very
did you-
kindly repeated it again, fine.
Yes, and there we are. There are 18 seconds left for getting on with other people, Derek, starting now.
Oh, it is such fun, you know. When you go to Ramsgate on a Tuesday morning and you see all those fellows on the road sending headings and going round police like that very quickly, you see, then you have to run these silly fillies and well, you challenge you talk absolute rubbish and everything. That's all right.
You have been challenged. Clement, you challenged.
Deviation from the English language.
The justified challenge, 8 seconds left for getting on with other people, Clement, starting now.
Ideally, you do it by your own personal...
Andree, Melly, you've challenged.
He
what?
hesitated.
Yes, he couldn't get his own personal out, could he? There we are. 4 seconds left for getting on with other people, Andree, starting now.
The best thing to do is to say nothing and just listen to them talking, and then they think you're lovely.
Once again, Andree Melly was speaking as the whistle went, so she gets that extra point, and now she has a lead of 2 over Clement Freud, who's in second place, and the others are just behind. Kenneth Williams, will you begin the next round? Sensationalism. How about that for a subject for you, Kenneth? You're nodding very seriously. Will
Yes,
you
I see
continue
your point.
for 60 seconds, starting now?
This is something I strongly disapprove of. Sensationalism is something which is directed at the baser instincts of human beings. It is something which we should never encourage in any way whatsoever. Because in appealing to the lower instincts of people...
Clement Freud, you've challenged. Why?
Repetition of instinct.
Yes, 11 instinct. 40 seconds left. Clement Freud for sensationalism, starting now.
Sensationalism has been called the lifeblood of Fleet Street, and indeed, without this, one wonders where the newspaper industry would be. If you buy a paper which comes up between 8p and 9p every week on a Sunday...
Andree Melly, you've challenged. Why?
Repetition, it comes out every week.
All right, Andree, I will give you a bonus point for cleverness. Leave the subject with Clement Freud. 27 seconds left for sensationalism, starting now.
You will find on the front page a piece of print which says, turn to page 4.
Kenneth Williams, why have you challenged?
Oh, deviation. You'll never find on the front page a piece of print.
I don't know. Do you really think there's such a thing as a piece of print?
Yes?
Ladies and gentlemen of the audience, do you think there's such a thing as a piece of print? If you do, will you cheer? And if you don't think so, will you all boo, and will you all do it together now? The audience are the final judge, whether they're right or wrong. They don't think there's such a thing as a piece of print. So Kenneth Williams has a point. He has 22 seconds left for sensationalism, starting now.
This is done deliberately to get you going, and that's why I strongly disapprove of it. Everything should have a morality. It should be deeply rooted in logos, or, as the Greeks would say...
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
Logos, I didn't like.
You maybe didn't like it, but it seemed to fit in all right, whatever it may mean in this context. So
I thought it was going to be something else.
I know you
Yes.
did. You were being just a bit too sharp there with your buzzer. 9 seconds left, Kenneth. And don't be intimidated by the chap sitting beside you, Kenneth. Sensationalism starting now.
The worst aspect of this, of course, is the ghost.
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
Aspect is the word he was searching for.
It was the way he pronounced it. It was one of his characters.
A deviation of pronouncement.
It's, you could have the worst aspect. Kenneth Williams has another point. 7 seconds left for sensationalism, Kenneth, starting now.
The worst aspect of this...
Clement Freud, you've challenged.
In that case, it's repetition.
It was repetition that time. I quite agree of aspect, though.
Oh, it's a disgrace.
It is not a disgrace. You've done it.
I was going to tell you about the ghost train and everything. All the sensations I had in it. You've deprived yourself.
No,
That's what you've done.
I'm extremely pleased we've been saved that. Anyway, there are 5 seconds left for sensationalism. Clement Freud starting now.
You behaved like a pack of young dogs, says Judge, is possibly my favorite...
If you heard, listeners, if you heard any chuckling and laughter while they were actually speaking in that round, it was that Kenneth Williams and Clement Freud, who sit next to each other, were trying a bit of one-upmanship on each other and really trying to intimidate.
I was blandishing him.
Your blandishments didn't work. Clement Freud had another point at the end of that round, which gives him a lead of 1 over Andree, and Kenneth Williams is still in 3rd place. Derek Nimmo, will you begin the next round? Grace, will you talk on that subject for 60 seconds, starting now?
One thinks immediately of Grace Darling, perhaps, Grace Fields, and also one can think of it as a surname, the great Dr. W.G. I remember hearing about him from my forebear when he played at Lord's in 1895 and scored 100 before lunch. In other words, one can also, of course, be in a state of grace, or one can think of the term in the year of grace. If you think about it, it's the one we're in the
Clement
moment.
Freud, you've challenged.
Well, hesitation.
Was it?
Hesitation.
No, I don't think so. No. I thought you were going to have him for grace, and I was going to be terribly clever and say, yes, but they're all different types of grace. So anyway,
I'm sorry, I'll let you make your joke. We'll do it again.
All right, do it again. You going to challenge again?
I'm going to challenge for repetition of
Yes,
grace.
but they were all different types of grace.
Brilliant! Oh, this is a scintillator, isn't it?
Derek Nimmo has another point, and he has 27 seconds left for grace, starting now.
For the another point that I've just received, may the Lord make me truly thankful. That is an example of a grace that one might say on occasion in the game such as the one we're in at the moment. Also, if one is rather naughty, one sometimes ends up in that disgrace.
Kenneth Williams, why do you challenge?
Hesitation.
Yes, Kenneth, you have another point, and there are 13 seconds left for grace, starting now.
Grace, well, of course, this is a delightful quality, and I possess it
Clement
in great
Freud, why have you
abundance.
challenged?
It's not a quality.
Of course it is. Graciousness. What are you talking about, you great fool?
Grace is a state. It's not a quality.
No.
Well, it is a state. It can, to some people, be, I think, a quality. And if it's Kenneth Williams, I'm sure it is a quality. So, Kenneth, with your quality, will you continue for 8 seconds on grace, starting now?
And as I say, this is something...
Derek Nimmo, why do you challenge?
Repetition, he said it.
Yes, but he actually, it's the phrase he was using, as I say. He has not said that before. So Kenneth has another point, and there are 5 seconds left for grace, starting now.
And whenever I lose the game, people always say to me, didn't you do it with grace? The grace you had. Oh, I was impressed with your grace. They always say that.
So, at the end of that round, Kenneth Williams has leapt into the lead.
Oh, good. Oh, that is
alongside Clement Freud. And they're 1 point in front of Andree Melly. Clement Freud, will you begin the next round? The subject is books. Will you talk on that subject for 60 seconds, starting now?
Books are made of paper, invariably covered by hardboard. They're also soft-covered books, which are much cheaper and available at good newsagents, especially on railway stations. I am a great collector of books, preferring blue ones to those of any other color. I always think that if you get a book which is heliotrope, mauve, purple, or even violet, the continent...
Derek Nimmo, your challenge.
Hesitation.
Hesitation, yes. 31 seconds for books, Derek Nimmo, starting now.
I like, of course, good books. Now, I do think it's awfully important when you're bringing up young children that you should try to...
Kenneth Williams, why do you... Hesitation. Kenneth, you have a point. 25 seconds for books, starting now.
Well, there is a book, Who Runs May Read, which Heavenly Truth imparts. Now, that, of course, was written by Keble in his famous one, and one asks oneself what it really means, you see. Who runs where? May Read, has she got the runs? A May Read runs? Who bounced
Your friend beside you buzzed, Clement Freud.
Yes.
Why did you buzz, Clement?
It was an overrunning, a sort of a verbal diarrhea.
Just done yourself out of a dissertation on John Keble, one of your great poets. That's all you've done yourself out of.
All right, Clement, you have another point. 7 seconds left for books, starting now. Derek Nimmo, you're challenged. Why?
Hesitation, didn't
Yes,
say
hesitation, right. 6 seconds for books, Derek, starting now.
Most books start with a preface, which is terribly interesting reading, often better than the main content of the...
Andree, Melly, you've challenged. Why?
Hesitation.
Hesitation. Andree, you have the subject. 2 seconds left for books starting now.
You can find an awful lot of them in libraries on his...
Well, you will be fascinated to hear there's but one point that separates the 3 leaders in this game. Clement Freud, Andree Melly, and Kenneth Williams. Kenneth, will you begin the next round? How I enjoy myself. Clement Freud, why did you challenge?
Disgusting.
You don't know till he opens his mouth.
Oh, all right.
Clement was trying to forestall your story. We've lost 2 lovely ones about what happened in the ghost train
And
your
John Keble.
dissertation on John Keble. Now let's hear how you enjoy yourself, maybe in the same or other ways, we don't mind. 60 seconds on that subject starting now.
Well, of course, in Who's Who, it simply says that my hobbies are calligraphy and walking. Now, this is to a certain extent true, but not wholly so. No, you see, because I awfully enjoy a little bit of music, you see.
Oh, well.
I was trying to do him.
Kenneth Williams is telling you he's trying to do an impersonation of Derek Nimmo. He's given us about 3 or 4 other impersonations throughout the show.
His mouth was agape.
His was a gape, yours was a gog, and Clement
got
Freud
the
got him.
point.
You got the
I got the point.
And you got the point as well. Clement, you have another point. You have 43 seconds left for how I enjoy myself starting now.
Actually, I enjoy myself most at a race meeting, particularly at Newbury, Ascot, and York. My main enjoyment comes from backing winning horses, that is to say, such equestrian quadrupeds.
Andree Melly, you've challenged.
Hesitation.
So there are 23 seconds left for how I enjoy myself, Andree, starting now.
I do it lots of different ways. At
Derek Nimmo, why have you challenged?
Deviation. He does it lots of different ways.
I will very rapidly give you a bonus point for wicked cleverness and press on with Andree with the subject. 20 seconds left for how I enjoy myself, starting now.
in the country, at our cottage, in the sunshine with my baby, is a very nice way to spend one's time. On the other hand, going skiing in the winter, if you can afford it, which isn't very often, and going down the mountains with the sun blazing and the crystal snow crunching under your feet.
Kenneth Williams, why have you challenged?
Hesitation.
Yes, there was almost just the hint of hesitation there, Andree. So Kenneth has the subject, and there are 2 seconds left for how I enjoy myself, starting now.
Going out, my shaft. Now, Andree, done lately?
Well, this really is, folks, a most exciting game. Derek Nimmo, the subject now is for you. Your round to begin. My briefcase. 60 seconds starting now.
Well, my briefcase actually is under the table on the other side at the moment, but I find it very useful, Red, because everybody has to keep their briefs somewhere, particularly, of course, barristers at law. And they are handed these briefs by solicitors generally, wrapped up with a bit of pink ribbon round them. They put them in these little bags and they carry them off to the law courts. I don't take mine to the place of law. I tend to take mine with me to television studios and also picnics. Every time I go down to Tunbridge Wells for a little repast in the open air, I take with me the aforesaid receptacle, and out of it I take sandwiches, bloated paste, cream, cheese, jam.
Andree Melly, you've challenged.
Green cheese.
Well, just say why you challenged.
Deviation, it's cream.
Oh, if you'd said hesitation, I mean, cheese might be green. I mean, Derek might have a thing about green cheese. I don't know.
Lovely cheese.
No, see, I've got it so difficult, to be fair, but I think that that is not devious within the rules of the game. So Derek keeps the subject. 23 seconds for my briefcase starting
And
now.
I took it with me into the King's Arms at Wanstead, and there was a chap behind the bar, and he said, "You tope here?" And I said, "No, I tape with the Bull and Bush round the corner." And he said, "How very interesting." And I said, "I'm glad you find it fascinating. Would you like to see inside this little bag that I've got?" And he said, "I'd be delighted."
Andree Melly, why have you challenged?
Deviation.
Why?
This conversation with the pub keeper wasn't really anything to do with his briefcase.
He just said it. Would you like to see this little bag I've got, which I understood to be his briefcase. So I'm still with Derek Nimmo. Derek, another point, and there are 9 seconds left for my briefcase. Derek, starting now.
I took it out. You see, there's a bit of blotting paper inside. He said, "Do you always carry that round in the case of briefs?" And I said, "I do. And not only that, I defy you to point to anybody else in this bar who hasn't got a similar piece of paper in his bag as well." And he said, "I don't believe it."
Well, as Derek Nimmo was speaking when the whistle went, he gets another point, and that also is the end of the show, and I have to tell you that it is a very exciting finish. Andree Melly was 4th place, 1 point behind Derek Nimmo, 1 point behind Kenneth Williams, who was 1 point behind Clement Freud. I would say it was almost a draw for all of them, but the person who did have one lead was Clement Freud. I would like to have said it was a draw, but there we are. Everybody did extraordinarily well. We hope you've enjoyed this particular edition of Just a Minute, and from all of us here, goodbye.
The chairman of Just a Minute was Nicholas Parsons. The program was devised by Ian Messiter and produced by David Hatch.
We present Kenneth Williams, Derek Nimmo, Clement Freud, and Sheila Hancock in Just a Minute. And as the minute waltz fades away, here to tell you about it is our chairman, Nicholas Parsons.
Thank you very much indeed, and welcome once again to Just a Minute. And having brought on our 4 keen and active competitors of the game, we're going to start playing once again with the same rules, of course. I'm going to ask them to speak, if they can, for just 1 minute on some subject without hesitation, without repetition, and without deviating from the subject. And according to how well they do that, they will gain points, or their opponents will gain points. And let us begin the show this week with Kenneth Williams. Kenneth, joy. Talk to us about joy for 60 seconds, starting now.
Well, she is the daughter, of course, of Edith and lives at Harrogate. And when she presented her little baby, Perihan, to me for the first time, the child cried out in alarm. I said, "Oh, have I put him off, do you think?" Actually, I didn't know then the sex, you see. That's why I said him instead of her.
Oh, Sheila Hancock, you've challenged.
Deviation. He's talking about Joy's baby, not about Joy.
Yes, I think you've gone on for quite a long time about the baby. And
You're very fly, aren't you?
I always start off well. I taper off as you go on.
Yes, that was 26 seconds you went, and only 5 of them were on Joy. So, Sheila, I agree with your challenge. You gain a point, and you take over the subject, and there are 34 seconds left for Joy, starting now.
There are many times in my life when I experience joy. Usually as...
Kenneth Williams is challenged. Why?
Repetition many times in her life.
As the audience have applauded your thought and your comment, we will give you a bonus point, Kenneth, but leave the subject with Sheila, because she hasn't, strictly speaking, deviated from the subject on the card, which is joy. So, Sheila, there are 30 seconds for you to continue with joy, starting now.
I suppose the greatest moment was when I first looked at my little daughter, Ellie Jane. Mind you, I didn't know quite what to do with her, but I was very joyful. Then when I see a lovely sunny day and I smell the new mown hay...
You challenge first. Hesitation, yes. So when you fluff on a word, it sounds like hesitation.
It was a lovely picture, though, isn't it?
Lovely picture.
Lovely picture. Derek, I agree with your challenge, so you gain a point, and there are 17 seconds left, Derek, starting now.
Hallelujah! My heart is filled with joy. Now the bells ring. My goodness, what a wonderful day. As I walk along the main street with the snow swishing down around me.
Clement Freud is challenged.
Him just 2 seconds to go, didn't he? 2 seconds to go.
Clement, why have you challenged?
Deviate.
Why?
Snow on this wonderful day.
And I
It's a
think
wonderful day.
snow can give people a lot of joy
Oh,
on
it's no
occasion.
good, Clem. He's obviously partisan. No good. You're fighting a
You were
losing
trying
battle.
very hard to get in.
Well, I
just
hadn't said anything. No.
Oh, he's
I know.
partisan. It's obvious. Buy a cigarette.
Clement, no, I disagree. He wasn't deviating from the subject of joy. So, Derek, you have another point. 2 seconds left, starting now.
Joy King was the third daughter of Henry.
Whoever is speaking when the whistle goes, which tells us that 60 seconds is up, gets an extra point. And this occasion it was Derek Nimmo, and he now has a commanding lead at the end of that round, and Derek is challenged. Why?
Well, I'd just like to point out to Clement Freud that he challenged when there were only 2 seconds to go.
Yes.
And he rather misjudged it. He normally challenged when there was a game. That's a sort of...
Well, I think that's very clever of
Yes,
him,
just
don't you?
a misjudgment.
He's covering it down. Maybe next time he'll challenge where there's only one. Let's continue with the show. Clement Freud, it is your turn, and what a strange subject. The thoughts of Mao. Clement, can you talk to us on the thoughts of Mao, 60 seconds, starting now?
This is a book which I've been trying to get from the public library for many months now. But I imagine it is full of such truths as better to have a one-legged communist prawn than a dirty imperialist buffalo. This is the kind of thought which I imagine Mao would...
Derek Nimmo challenge.
Repetition of imagine.
Yes, you did say imagine before.
Oh, that's awfully mean of him. It was getting really interesting.
But he did say
Looking forward to
imagine
those
twice,
one-legged
so-
prawns and things.
Derek, I agree with your challenge. You gain a point, and there are 41 seconds left for the thoughts of Mao, starting now.
When one goes to Shanghai these days.
Kenneth Williams, why have you challenged?
Deviation. He never goes to Shanghai.
When one goes.
I'm sure he probably never goes, but he did actually say when one goes to Shanghai.
Or when one means himself, doesn't it?
No, it means anyone.
Well, why didn't he say when anyone goes to Shanghai?
He didn't actually say when I go to
You're
Shanghai.
most partisan.
I'm
it's
not.
obvious.
I try to be fair, and whoever I disagree with when they challenge, I'm always accused by that person of being unfair to them. But I'm afraid on this occasion I disagree with your challenge. Derek keeps the subject and a point. 37 seconds left. The thoughts of Mao, starting now.
If one goes into a Charing Cross...
Clement Freud challenge.
Repetition.
Of what?
One goes. When one goes, if...
Absolutely right, yes, give it to
The
Freud.
repetition of a phrase. So that is right. Clement Freud, I agree with your challenge. You get a point, and there are 36 seconds left. The thoughts of Mao, starting now.
Pathetic ploughmen trudging their weary paths.
Kenneth Williams, why have you challenged?
Deviation has nothing to do with now. It's a paraphrase of Gray's Elegy.
It's perfectly possible that one of the thoughts of Mao could be a paraphrase of Gray's Elegy, because I actually haven't read it.
That's nothing to do with it. What about great poets?
Well, I must be honest, I have not read all the thoughts
Just
of
as he
Chairman
swam
Mao.
up for Yangtze doing the breaststroke. It's ridiculous. I've
But
done
all
the
right.
crawl all down Oxford Street. No one took a blind bit of notice.
I can only... As I've never read the thoughts of Chairman Mao. And I'm... So, as most of the audience have not read the thoughts of Chairman Mao, I think the only thing I can do is to put the final decision to them. If you consider that Kenneth's challenge was legitimate, will you cheer? And if you disagree with the challenge, will you boo? And will you all do it together now? They're all against Mao. They want you to swim down the Oxford Street. You get the subject on the audience's verdict, Kenneth, and you have 30 seconds for the thoughts of Mao, starting now.
Well, these were a load of old rubbish collected in red books and distributed by a lot of infamous youths who became known, I believe, as the Red Guard. And
Derek, number wife, who challenge.
Repetition of red. Red books, red
Yeah,
guard.
red books and red. Oh, bad
oh,
luck.
I mean, it's so unfair.
It is tough, yes. There we are. Derek, 2 reds, gains you a point. 21 seconds, the thoughts of Mao, starting
It's
now.
not generally known to the Western audience that the thoughts of Chairman Mao tend to be rather grubby. In fact, awfully dirty. And this is something that he has kept from his wife for many years. And that is why he's always surrounded by these gentlemen with guns, revolvers, and even machine-type weapons.
once again, Derek Nimmo was speaking when the whistle went, gains an extra point, and has increased his lead over everybody else at the end of that round. Sheila Hancock, your turn to begin. The subject is waffles. Can you talk to us about them for just a minute, starting now?
This is something at which this team is expert. Waffles. It is a way of talking to fill in time, which is a load of rubbish, and which Kenneth Williams is particularly adept at.
Kenneth Williams is challenged.
Deviation. Am I going to sit here and be told I talk a load of rubbish? One of the greatest no.
So why are you challenging? Why are you challenging?
Because it's a disgrace. Deviation is untrue.
No, I'm sorry. She did actually repeat particular twice, but it's too late now. You charged for deviation, and she wasn't deviating from the subject, as the way I see it, because she can interpret this in a way.
You passed your opinion on General Mao. I'd pass in my opinion on you.
You are extremely rude. You're such a cakehole.
There you are.
I think that was.
I don't have to come here to be insulted.
You can be insulted anyway.
Right. So now that everybody's insulted everybody, let's get on with the game, shall we? I disagree with the challenge, so Sheila gains a point, and there are 47 seconds left for waffles, starting now.
Apart from that, it is a revolting convection, which is a sort of biscuit.
Derek Nimmo's challenge, why?
Well, it doesn't make sense, deviation. She could say revolting convection instead of confection. That's what she was trying to say.
Yes.
There's deviation. Not making sense. Load of rubbish.
Derek's on a point. 44 seconds. Waffles, Derek, starting now.
See them waffle along. It's a lovely sort of thought.
Kenneth Williams, why have you challenged?
Because the deviation of the song is not see them waffle along. It's see them shuffle along.
Oh, it is.
See them shuffling along.
We love that, and the audience adored it, but it's got absolutely nothing to do with waffles. He never said it was the song. He was just said, see them waffle along. He's entitled to say it if he wants to.
He was doing a lyric.
Yes, oh, la, la, la. He wasn't deviating. There are 35 seconds for you, Derek, to continue with waffles, starting now.
Jolly nice when you get them inside your gullet, because they're so sweet, tender, and in every possible
Clement Freud
way.
challenged.
Hesitation.
Hesitation, because he really wasn't making sense. All the words were jumbled. Clement, you get a point.
I thought I was making
And there
sense.
are 28 seconds for waffles, starting now.
The most extraordinary thing about New York restaurants is that they tend to sell these with maple syrup sprawled all over them, also bits of streaky bacon and cucumber slices. You go into a salon, which they call an eating house, and together with...
Derek Nimmo, you've challenged.
Hesitation.
Well, it was so borderline, I don't think, it's one of those difficult things, I don't think it was quite hesitation, so I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt to Clement. He keeps the subject, 11 seconds left, waffles, Clement, starting now.
Some of the best borderline waffles I've had were on the Mason-Dixon line, where they served them with baked bean.
Derek Nimmo, you've
Repetition
challenged.
of serve.
Yes, they
Serve
have
with
served
cucumber,
before. So, Derek, that's correct, you'll gain a point, and the subject, 5 seconds left, waffles, starting now.
If you go into the House of Commons, you will see a lot of people...
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
It's like two waffles.
Well,
Exactly.
But he had... You mean exactly? Keep quiet, Kenneth. He only said one sentence. There's 3 seconds to go. You know that.
It's a long sentence.
It's a long sentence, and probably
If you will go
he
to
has
the House
not...
of
If you go to the House of Commons, he has not finished. Derek gets a point. 2 seconds left. Waffles starting now.
Dick's Diner, which is just off the M1, sells the most...
Derek managed to speak again when the whistle went, so he gained more points and has increased his lead, which is now quite commanding over the rest. Derek, it's your turn to begin. The subject, wizardry. That's, oh, this has gone very quiet. I haven't put a spell out like that.
Wizardry.
Can you talk to us for 60 seconds on wizardry, starting now?
This is something which both the Old Testament and the New Testament...
Clement Freud, challenged.
Repetition of test.
Yes,
I hadn't said
perfectly good.
Testament, I said New Test.
Yes, it's coming up. Right, he got-
Oh, good, you're
Testament
trying
before he
to
can
flatter your way out of it.
In
An
that case,
anticipatory challenge.
in that case, hesitation.
Yes, he's
I only got
see-
as far as Test.
You see how they try and bluff me out of it? No, I quite agree with Clement's challenge. You get a point, Clement. Wizardry, starting now.
In a P.G. Wodehouse play, a character...
Derek's got back in again.
Hesitation.
Hesitation, yes. 56 seconds left. Wizardry, starting now.
Deuteronomy and Isaiah forbid the use or the acquaintance with sorcerers and wizards. They are male people who conjure up evil spirits.
Clement Freud's challenged.
They're not necessarily male
They
people.
are
there's
necessarily
deviation.
male. Wizards can only be male.
Or hermaphrodite.
Very sharp challenge, but I disagree. Derek has another point. 41 seconds, Wizardry, Derek, starting now.
Sorry.
Clement
I didn't know you
Hesitation.
said
Hesitation. 39 seconds for you, Clement, on Wizardry, starting now.
Wizardry, he said. And
Sheila Hancock's challenged.
Repetition.
You're allowed to repeat the title yesterday,
but not like
you are.
You're aggressive. What's going on between you and Clement Freud? You're ganging up against Derek and I.
Ours has been the most honourable acquaintanceship.
I must say, I pointed out before they came together in just a minute, and
That was because of the taxi. Nothing to do with
the
anything.
taxi. Well, I must say the partnership's
I
increased.
come over faint to help me out. That's all. That's all there is to it.
Well,
he
it's
put
now
his arm
known-
round me because I was fainting. I was falling. I had 2 sherries. That's what done it. It was the intoxication, you see.
2 sherries, that's repetition. Now just keep
Oh,
quiet for a second. Unfortunately, Sheila, it was a rather clever ploy of Clement's which got a challenge and gets him a point. It's another way of getting points, you see.
Yes.
You came in straight away, it was repetition, but he's allowed to say because it's the subject on the card. Clement, you get another point. 32 seconds left, starting now.
I met my wife when she played the part of Beauty, and the wizard was played by an old man who later became...
Derek, there were wife...
Revolution of played, actually. I first met my wife when she played
Beauty, yes, well listened. And there are 25 seconds for you now, Derek, with Wizardry starting now.
I'm off to see the wizard, the wonderful ditto of Oz. Why? Anticipatory challenges will do you no good.
I'm sorry.
Why did you challenge, Kenneth?
It was Sheila's challenge that should be heard, not mine.
Sheila, what was your challenge?
I didn't, did I? I did.
Deviation.
It was your challenge,
Deviation.
Oh, I'm sorry, it was Clement's.
It wasn't. But on behalf of my colleague
Yes.
and friend...
Yes.
Ooh, here we go
Kenneth
again.
Stop this from man's under the table.
Deviation.
What is going on what grounds is it devious?
He said, I'm off.
I'm off?
Yes.
I'm off to see the wizard. I'm sorry, you got me completely foxed. He said, I'm off to see the wizard.
I didn't challenge
Wonderful
him.
ditto. I know.
Who challenged me?
Kenneth's buzzer came up, and Kenneth doesn't wish to claim the challenge, so all that happens is that Derry gets a point. He continues with Wizardry. 22 seconds left, starting now.
In Revelations and St. John, it is also...
Kenneth
We've already had all this biblical stuff. It's terribly boring. It's really boring rubbish.
Well,
I don't want to hear all this biblical stuff all the time.
he wasn't deviating from Wizardry, therefore I have to give him another point.
Oh, it's a
And
disgrace.
17 seconds left for Wizardry starting now.
Always terribly like Merlin. You know, that's the chap with the long, tall hat with the stars and the moons on it and the big one. And he goes around the place in those lovely stories which I used to listen to and even read when I was very tiny, weaving spells and making magic. And my goodness, how my childhood days.
Well, in spite of being intimidated on all sides and trying very hard himself, he's doing extraordinarily well, this particular show, Derek is, yes. He's increased his lead. No, Clement's well up there in second place, but Sheila Hancock and Kenneth Williams are trailing a little. Kenneth Williams, it's your turn to begin.
Well, thank goodness for that. Yes.
Yes, it's lovely to hear from you again. The subject is fallacies. Can you talk to us about them for just a minute, starting now?
One of the greatest historical fallacies is that John Lackland was some sort of idiot who lost his jewels in the wash, whereas in actual fact he established the Wizardry system of England most excellently and was a loyal and devoted son. Records still extant show that every year yards of damask, cotton, and other beautiful things were given to his mother. And what finer testimony can you have of a man's devotion who loves me?
Honestly, he goes offering to these flights offences and nobody dare challenge him in case he's talking facts.
Why are you challenging, Sheila?
Deviation.
Why? What
Well,
grounds?
it's rubbish. I can't make head nor tail of it.
You did establish, actually, that there was a great fallacy about this.
That Lackland was a fool who lost his jewels in the wash, and that is not so. He's an industrious man. That's what I'm saying. I'm establishing
Yes,
the fallacy.
but you established it was a fallacy, but then you went on a great length about him and his losses and
Well,
his
how else
mother.
do you disprove a fallacy? Than by going on about it. I mean, do tell me. I'd like to know. I'd like to know. I'd like to know what your masculine heart is doing now. I know what mine's doing. It's pounding inside. They'll be coming up to my door. They'll be knocking on my door.
He's insane.
He's gone.
I thought it was very well argued.
Thank you very much, Clem. You're a
It was very well argued, but all right. There seems to be a difference of opinion. The audience will be the final judge. If you consider that Kenneth had managed to get away from talking about fallacies and his illustration had gone right on to something else, then you're on Sheila's side. Will you cheer? And if you're on Kenneth's side, will you boo? And will you all do it together now? Sheila, you have it. Gain a point. 20 seconds left for fallacies, starting now.
It is a fallacy that it is easy to play this programme. I can tell you that it is incredibly difficult to talk.
Kenneth Williams, why have you challenged?
It is 3 times.
Oh.
It is a fallacy. It is a fallacy. It is. 3
Yes,
times.
she said it 3 times. So, Kenneth, to be accurate, I have to give it to you. 13 seconds left, fallacies starting now.
Also, it's a great fallacy to assume that the English are by nature phlegmatic and unemotional. This came about largely due to the Duke of Wellington impressing his persona so much upon the national consciousness.
Well, Kenneth was speaking when the whistle went. He gained an extra point, and he also disproved another fallacy.
And have I got into the lead?
No, you haven't.
Oh, it's right.
He proved that you can go on being rude and still the audience love you. I've never...
How many marks have I got then?
You've got 4, and so is Sheila Hancock.
Well, who's winning?
Derek Nimmo's still winning, and Clement Freud's in second place. And actually, if Sheila hadn't been held by the audience, you would have won.
That's true, yes.
Yes, there we
She's a
are.
conniver.
Anyway, the audience are on your side that time, Kenneth. The subject now is for you, Clement Freud. Oh, what a topical one, Fuzz. Can you talk to us about Fuzz, Clement? 60 seconds, starting now.
Fuzz is a name popularly given to the police forces of the world, but also the mildew surrounding a gooseberry.
Kenneth Williams, wife of
Deviation is not true.
Well,
Fuzz is not given to the police forces of the world. It
Oh,
happens
yes,
to be a
accord-
London
no,
expression. It's
Kenneth,
nothing to do with the
according
police
to-
forces of the world.
Kenneth! You've gone too many times. Listen, depending on who you are, you might call any police force the Fuzz. So anyway, Clement, I disagree with the challenge. There are 51 seconds for Fuzz, starting now. Derek Nimmo got his...
Hesitation, right?
Yes, there was. 50 seconds for you, Derek, on Fuzz, starting now.
Fuzz is what Clement Freud hasn't, because he is rather short of follicles. In fact, the top of his head is particularly bleak. It is, as he well said. I thought he said it awfully well, really. And I thought
Sheila Hancock. challenge.
Repetition of well.
Absolutely
Very
right,
well.
yes.
Well said,
Yes,
well said, well
done.
said, Sheila. Well said, Sheila. A point for you. 38 seconds. Fuzz, starting now.
I would challenge that Clement Freud hasn't much fuzz. He has quite a considerable amount around his chin.
Derek Nimmo's challenge. Why?
Deviation, how does she know what I was going to say?
Round his chin, I can
No.
see it.
She's using fuzz to mean that furry stuff that people
I
have
see.
on their head, or
Yes,
that soft,
right,
silky
right,
stuff
right.
that some of the girls have on their
Absolutely.
head. So, a different meaning to you, Derek. I think Sheila has a point. 33 seconds. Fuzz, starting now.
The Fuzz wear dark blue uniforms and sometimes helmets, or if they're officers, they wear peaked caps.
Kenneth Williams has challenged. Why?
Well, she's just said it's on his chin, and now she's saying they wear dark blue uniforms. They can't be on his chin one minute and in uniform the next.
If
What
you're
she-
challenged and you start again, it can be, because this word can mean more than one thing, so you can take the word and talk about it in any sense you wish, and that's what Sheila was doing. So she wasn't deviating, Kenneth. There are 27 seconds for Fuzz, Sheila, starting now.
Some people talk of them in a derogatory fashion, but I think they are splendid, and in England we are very lucky because we have a particularly good police force.
Clement Freud challenged.
Repetition of police.
I think she did.
I don't know.
No,
you talked
she's
about the
done that by
Fuzz
saying
before. You
I
didn't.
call them the Fuzz.
No, she didn't actually say the
No.
word police before.
you
Sheila
lost
has
that.
another point. And there are 18 seconds for Fuzz, Sheila, starting now.
Unlike most forces, ours are unarmed. They have immense bravery to face sometimes riotous mobs just by linking their hands and saying nice things.
Derek Nimmo, you challenged. Why? Yes, there was a hesitation. Everybody was quiet because they wanted to hear that little eulogy to the British police force. But, Derek, you were correct. 4 minutes. 4 minutes. 4 seconds, actually, will do. Fuzz, starting now.
I would like to endorse Sheila Hancock's wonderful remarks about fuzz.
Sheila Hancock...
Repetition.
What?
Because he's saying he's endorsing what I've already said.
Oh, yes, that's
We give Sheila a bonus point for a clever thought, but as Derek wasn't, strictly speaking, deviating from the subject, he continues
No, I said repetition. Not
repetition. Didn't
deviation.
say deviation. I'll call you out.
Why are you so keen to catch everybody out today, Kenneth?
Because you're so partisan.
He's having one of his spells today, Kenneth, isn't he?
Who's put the wizardry on you? You're all of a fuzz at the moment. So, Sheila gets a point, but Derek continues with the subject. 2 seconds left. Fuzz, starting now.
Fuzzy Wuzzy was a bear.
I'm afraid that's all we have time for. The final score is Kenneth just in 4th place. We heard a lot from you, but it wasn't always when playing the game. In 2nd place, completely equal, Sheila Hancock and Clement Freud, but all trailing quite considerably behind this week's winner, Derek Nimmo. We do hope you've enjoyed this particular edition of Just a Minute. From all of us here, goodbye.
The chairman of Just a Minute was Nicholas Parsons. The programme was devised by Ian Rossiter and produced by David Hatch.
We present Kenneth Williams, Derek Nimmo, Clement Freud, and Miriam Carlin in Just a Minute. And as the minute waltz fades away, here to tell you about it is our chairman, Nicholas Parsons.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed, and welcome once again to Just a Minute. And we welcome in the show Miriam Carlin, who's joined these other 3 old campaigners at the game. And they're all going to try and speak at different times for just a minute on some unlikely subject that I will give them without hesitation, without repetition, without deviating in any way from the subject. And if one of the others thinks they're guilty of one of these crimes, they may challenge and gain a point for themselves or otherwise. And if you're not sure how we score, we hope it will become obvious as we play the game. Derek Nimmo, will you begin? The subject is makeup. Will you try and speak for 60 seconds on that subject, starting now?
Makeup can be used either as a verb, really, or as a noun. I shall take the former first. It is really the process of currying favour or acting in an obsequious manner when you're trying to obtain some sort of reward from somebody, as exemplified, really, by the way that Clement Freud behaves towards Nicholas Parsons. Whenever he wants to try and gain an extra point on a dubious challenge, he makes up to Nicholas Parsons. Repetition of Nicholas Parsons.
Kenneth Williams.
Well, you take the words out of my mouth. It was there.
I managed to correct it, you see, before he said it's all right.
It's not all right, I'm afraid, Derek. I agree with Kenneth Williams' challenge, so that means he gains a point, the first point to be awarded, and he takes over the subject of makeup, and there are 34 seconds left, Kenneth, starting now.
It is one of the most disgusting.
Derek Nimmo, you've challenged.
Hesitation.
Hesitation. I agree that was a hesitation, Derek, so you gain a point, and there are 32 seconds for makeup starting now.
Of course, as a noun, it is something which people, mainly ladies, and very often gentlemen these days, I'm ashamed to say...
Hesitation.
I don't think there was hesitation. It was bordering on it. Teetering on it. I'm not going to be intimidated by the audience. No, Derek. Nimmo has another point, and there are 29 seconds left for makeup starting now.
When I get into my dressing room in the theatre in the evening, I put a bit of grease paint on my face, really. Number 5, or perhaps number 9. I then put a carmine liner on top of my eyes and black underneath. I put on my toupee, which I keep to one side.
Kenneth, why do you challenge?
Put on 3 times.
Yes, he did put on rather a lot, didn't he? So, Kenneth, you have another point, and you take over the subject. There are 12 seconds left for makeup starting now.
Makeup is one of the most revolting aspects of this age, and of course, meretricious. This must be borne in mind when any discussion of it takes place. Cosmetics,
Derek Nimmo, you've challenged.
Quite understand. Deviation. How can it be revolting and meretricious?
Yes, it is rather difficult.
Well, I mean, we can't go off into a great thing on semantics. We've got to play the game.
They do seem to be rather...
I don't know whether it can be meretricious and revolting, so I'm going to put it to the audience and let them be the final judge.
They don't know anyone.
Well, as I don't know either, I'm going to let them judge. No, I'm not going to let you tell me or Derek. I'm going to let the audience judge. If you agree with Derek's challenge, will you please cheer? And if you disagree, will you please boo? And will you all do it together now? I think they disagree. So, Kenneth, you have another point. There are 2 seconds left for makeup starting now.
The face needs...
Miriam Carlin, you've challenged. Why?
Oh, I just
Derek, Kenneth Williams has another point. 1 second left, Kenneth, for makeup starting now.
The face needs no adornment. It's lovely as it is.
Miriam, I'm sure, was trying the trick that so many of them try, and that is to try and challenge just before the whistle goes, because you can get not another point for that, but a point for speaking while the whistle goes.
That's right, you read my mind.
Yes, but you weren't successful. Bad luck, Miriam. Kenneth gets that extra point for speaking when the whistle goes, and at the end of the first round, he has a very commanding lead over all the others. So, let's hear how we continue. Clement, Freud, we'd love to hear from you.
Good evening.
And will you now try and talk for just a minute on the subject of empathy, starting now.
Empathy is the sort of thing that children who can't pronounce their S's say when they actually mean sympathy. If you look up the word in the Oxford English Dictionary or similar volumes, it is possible that you will find it described as a feeling of affinity between two people, which is more one of mental attraction than one of actual physical communion. I think I'll stop here.
Derek Nimmo, you challenge.
Hesitation on the grounds he packed up.
He not in fact. I say was hesitation, Derek, and you gain a point, and you take over the subject. There are 33 seconds for empathy, starting now.
Of course, I have the most tremendous empathy for Kenneth Williams. I find we are kindred spirits in so many ways. It's quite extraordinary. This great, overwhelming attraction, which I find quite unbearable sometimes. I've never sitting on number 45 bus, and I thought to myself, I have an empathy for that man. And you know, when I came into there, what did I see? Nothing but hatred, an overwhelming disdain from him, and all the time, the empathy's bubbling up inside me.
Miriam Carlin. Miriam, you challenged his bubbling just before he went on the boil.
Hated to interrupt, but he did repeat empathy at least 3 times.
Miriam, as you were next to him, I think you can be the only judge of how many times he said it, so I will accept your word that if he
I don't particularly want to speak about it, but...
You have to now, dear. You
have the subject now. You challenge. You're in with the subject, and there are 7
seconds
for empathy starting now.
Well, such a bit
Derek,
yes, you're quite
hesitation. Right. Derek, you have a point. There are 5 seconds for empathy starting now.
Sometimes when you find someone whose brain...
Clement, Freud, why have you challenged?
Deviation.
Why?
From his former lunatic attachment to Kenneth Williams.
It is certainly deviation from that, but it is not deviation within the game, so therefore all that can happen is that Derek gets another point, and there are 3 seconds left for empathy, Derek, starting now.
Actually, of course, if you look in Webster's dictionary, you will find quite a different...
Well, Derek Nimmo's bubbling has put him right on the boil to the extent of taking the lead at the end of that round. He has a lead of 1 over Kenneth Williams. And Miriam Carlin, will you begin the next round? Throwing a party. That is the subject. Will you speak about it for just a minute, starting now?
Well, I was sitting minding my own business in Regent's Park, very quietly, sitting watching the ducks ducks and watching going past in the pond, and suddenly this party came up to me, accosted me, and said something very rude in my teeny luggo. So I got hold of him, you see, having learnt the jiu-jitsu and how to do it and all that clever stuff, because I've been watching that program on the television where they do it in black leather. And so I decided to take a course of this, you see, and it came in very, very handy indeed, because after this party had said something extremely rude in my teensy what's it,
Derek Nimmo, why do you challenge?
Deviation. He said something funny in her teeny what's it.
Do you say
I mean, hesitation.
No,
I don't think you can change a challenge once you've started.
Can't.
No. It was certainly not deviation for a teeny
No. I mean, I didn't repeat.
Yes, I
luggo.
could have given it to you for hesitation, but you were too late with your ideas. So Miriam has another point, and there are 17 seconds for throwing a party, Miriam, starting now.
So I took him up, picked him, and chucked him in the...
Clement Freud, you've challenged what?
She's already done that and is spitting all over Derek Nimmo.
No, I hadn't touched him yet.
No, she hadn't actually.
I hadn't.
She told us what she intended to do.
Exactly.
Oh, I'm with you, Miriam. It's all right. As far as I remember, she told us what she intended to do. She hadn't actually done anything yet with this party. He could have done what the hell he liked by this time, couldn't he? So anyway, Miriam, you continue for 13 seconds, throwing a party starting now.
And I chucked him in the canal, and it was floating there and scrabbling around. And
Miriam, you've been challenged.
Oh, really?
No, that's right. But it was repetition of chuck.
Yes, she did chuck before. So this time Derek has a point. There are 10 seconds left, Derek, for throwing a party starting now.
Everyone back to my place, I cry, and they all come bubbling back on motorcycles and motor cars, scooters and everything. They draw up outside my door.
Kenneth Williams, you've challenged what?
Repetition, the word motor twice.
Oh, no.
Motorcycles, motor cars, yes.
Well, they're all to one word.
They're hyphenated words, aren't they? They're
well,
not...
I think this is rather quibbling.
Are you all holding up the game there? No, look at the chairman. You've got to have rules. Nicholas Parsons has got to be the presiding ruler.
You haven't heard what decision I'm going to give you.
No, but I'm sure it'll be just.
Dear Mester, you thought of a game. Where does a hyphen stand in this game?
If they're hyphenated, then they are different words. Motor car is not
Right.
a motorcycle.
There we are then. That's where it means that Kenneth Williams has a point, and there are 4 seconds.
No.
It's just you misheard him, mate.
Don't interrupt the chairman. He knows what he's doing. Leave him alone. That method is no good either.
All right, Derek Nimmo has a point. A good chairman is always allowed to change his mind.
Of course he is.
So, Derek,
Quite
you
right,
have another
darling.
point, and there are 4 seconds left for throwing a party starting now.
I open a bottle of Louise St. George, 1964, with a great plank on the cork, and there the people come, and they say...
Well, as Derek Nimmo was speaking, once again when the whistle went, he gets another point, and his hyphens have gained him extra points, so he has a very definite lead over the others at the end of that round. Kenneth Williams, will you begin the next round? Absolute bliss. I'm sure you've experienced it. You might even have experienced it quite recently, but tell us about it now. 60 seconds starting now.
This, of course, would differ according to the person. An alcoholic would doubtless find absolute bliss if he was locked in a brewery. I find it in the realm of poetry. Indeed, as Tennyson says, infinite bliss was Lancelot's in one kiss from Guinevere. Oh, that moves you, doesn't it? Isn't that really blissful? Doesn't that make you think in terms of heavenly peace and contentment, which is what the word is about?
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
It doesn't.
But it might to Kenneth Williams, so I think I'm only fair to leave it with Kenneth and say
You mean
have
it was a rhetorical question who didn't really want an answer at all?
Well, no.
Well, try and answer it now. There are 24 seconds left, Kenneth, starting now.
I don't think I can go on.
Derek Nimmo got in first that time.
Well,
you have another point, Derek. There are 21 seconds for absolute bliss, starting now.
Lying in a field of clover, with my head cushioned upon the grass, I look up into the sky.
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
If it's a field of clover, he can't have his head cushioned.
So there are 14 seconds for you, Clement, having gained your first point, which is very unusual for you, but we often know you to be a late starter. 14 seconds, absolute bliss, starting now.
My idea of absolute bliss is sitting at a long table with a white cloth, a knife, a fork, a spoon, a glass of wine, and thou. Thou doesn't always come...
Derek, you challenged.
Well, two people, two thous.
Yes, it was a very definite statement, thou, so we have to give you a point on that, Derek, and say there are 2 seconds for absolute bliss, starting now.
Looking up at the swirling clouds.
Once again, Derek got in when the whistle, just before the whistle went, gaining himself 2 more points and giving himself an even longer lead at the end of that round. Clement Freud, will you begin the next round? Tiddlywinks. Will you talk on that delightful pastime starting now?
It's an extraordinary thing, but if anyone says tiddlywinks, people always laugh. And there's no good reason for this, because as a game it is one that has enjoyed popularity at universities and in institutions for many centuries in this country and elsewhere. There is...
Kenneth Williams.
Don't you want to hear about this game?
Hesitation, Kenneth. You have the subject. 42 seconds for Tiddlywinks, starting now.
This is a game played with careless little discs, and something which I've seen being done, but I have never indulged in myself, because I've always thought that the kind of people that play it are slightly deficient mentally.
Well, you have to tiddle and they wink in return, you see, as you do the aforesaid motions with these little discs on the actual board.
Derek Nimmo, why have you tried?
Repetition of discs.
Yes, we've had discs before, Kenneth. So
Well, I've
there
got
are
to slip one,
17 and a half seconds for you, Derek, on Tiddlywinks, starting now.
Well, I think the best way to play the game is if you have the red counters, you put them on the table, press with the large one on one of the smaller ones, which leaps into the air, and you hope it will go into the receptacle that you put there for that purpose. If you're...
Derek's vivid description of a game of Tiddlywinks takes him even further into the lead at the end of that round. Kenneth, will you begin the next round? Friendship. Will you talk about that for just a minute, starting now?
This is something I'm particularly adept at describing. It's about sharing. And this probably is what the whole of life really amounts to. Perhaps it was best expressed by George Eliot in that lovely passage, the inexpressible comfort of feeling safe with a person, having neither to weigh thoughts nor measure words, but pour it all out chaff and grain together, knowing that a faithful hand will take and sift it, keep what is worth keeping, and with a breath of kindness, blow the rest away. And I first read that in 1952, and I thought it summed up friendship in the most poetic way, and probably the most beautiful way. Oh, I've said way twice.
You were saying it so beautifully, though, Kenneth. I think they might have overlooked your transgression and let you go on just to hear you. But Clement Freud got in with his challenge, and there are 13 seconds left for friendship, starting now.
My greatest friendship did, in fact, take place in George Eliot's passage late one evening when we met one another and our eyes held, hers blue, mine green, my...
Well, as Clement Freud was speaking, the whistle went, he gains yet another point, and he's now in third place. Derek, will you begin the next round? Lending a hand. There's a delightful subject for you to talk on, if you can, for 60 seconds, starting now.
I think it's awfully important, if one can, to lend a hand as one goes through life, particularly to friends. I remember particularly when I was first married.
Kenneth, why have you challenged?
Too particularly.
There were 2 particulars, yes, very cleverly spotted, Kenneth. And there are 51 seconds left for lending a hand, Kenneth Williams, starting now.
Well, to lend a hand is a very gallant thing indeed, because the assumption must be that you are going to be without one for some time. And therefore it is something I do not indulge in. And when they say, would you loan me your palm, I say categorically, get out of it. You're getting nothing out of me, I cry. and consequently I have a reputation.
Derek, why have you challenged?
Deviation, because he's talking about not lending a hand rather than lending a hand.
That is true. It's very valid. Quite valid.
Derek Nimmo, Kenneth admits you have a point, and you take over the subject of lending a hand with 23 seconds left, starting now.
Living in my first home with my spouse, one night we were lying in bed together.
Kenneth and his wife...
Deviation.
Kenneth, I disagree. There's nothing devious about lying in bed...
Lending a hand, laying in bed.
In all fairness, leave it with Derek and say there are 18 seconds left for lending a hand, Derek, starting now.
I'd taken back with me that night Archie Andrews. I was working with Peter Bruff at the time, and he had a spare hand attached to his body. And as I was lying there with my aforesaid lawful wedded wife, I put one hand on her shoulder, another hand on her leg, and then I put the third hand...
Clement, Freud, why are you challenging? If that was an anticipatory challenge. Is his challenge in anticipation justified, Derek?
Not at all. It was just that when she counted there were 3 hands, she screamed rather loudly. It just happens to be true.
Clement,
what... change to tell the truth on this programme.
Why are you challenging, Clement?
Too many hands, repetition of hands.
Oh, that is absolutely right. There's too many hands, yes. The subject is lending a hand. You can repeat that more than once, but you can't...
Well, I had to. The story had 3 hands. We wouldn't be any point in it if I only said 1.
Anyway, there are 3 seconds left for you, Clement, on lending a hand, starting now.
Coming out of Waterloo Station late one summer's evening.
Well, the situation's still the same. Derek is still in the lead, Kenneth is following, Clement behind that, and Miriam trailing a little. Whoa. Clement, will you talk to us for 60 seconds about making coffee, starting now?
Making coffee is a very simple thing, and there are more snobs who tell you more untrue things than almost any other subject. Ideally, what you need is a saucepan, some water, some reasonably well-ground coffee, and heat, which turns the water to a temperature at which it dissolves the coffee, whereafter it can be percolated into a jug before it is placed into a cup. But there are those...
Derek, why have you challenged?
This is rather dreary, isn't it? I'm always mumbling on.
However dreary it may be, it is still playing the game, so Clement gets another point, and there are 32 seconds left, Clement, making coffee, starting now.
But there are actually people who appear on television programs who advise you to purchase green beans and roast them yourself, and when they've become the required colour...
Kenneth, why have you challenged?
Hesitation.
Hesitation, I quite agree, Kenneth. You take over the subject of making coffee. 21 seconds left, starting now.
The best thing to do is to get your instant bran, put a teaspoonful in the cook.
Clement, why do you challenge?
Deviation. It's quite clearly not the best thing.
I'm making a coffee, dearie. You've done your bit with all that percolating.
This is one of those very difficult things. I would agree with Clement Freud, because I think this is much better coffee. But on the other hand, Kenneth Williams may prefer the other kind of coffee. So what do I do? I'll leave it to you, may I? If you agree on this coffee issue with Clement Freud and his challenge, will you cheer? If you disagree, will you please boo? And will you all do it together now? They all like that filthy muck that you like.
Philistines.
So there we are. They are the final judges in this show, and there are 18 seconds left for you, Kenneth Williams, making coffee, starting now.
And then you pour into the made cup of coffee the milk or cream. Cream is nice.
Clement, you've challenged.
It's double cream.
A double cream. Yes, that's right. Clement has a point, and he takes over the subject with 10 seconds left, starting now.
Some people take sugar and some not, and the Turks...
Kenneth, why do you challenge?
Two sums. Some people take sugar and some not.
Yes, but we've never challenged on sums and ifs and ands and buts and these before, no. No, I think what I'll do, Kenneth, I don't think we can have it for some. I think we'll just forget about that and say that there are 6 seconds left with Clement Freud still talking about making coffee, starting now.
Some people take sugar and some not, and the Turks, above all...
You challenged.
Repetition of those Turks.
Not only the Turks, but the...
And the sums.
Yes, I think once you've said sums twice, if you say it 4 times, it is repetition. So, Derek, you have another point, and there are 2 seconds for making coffee starting now.
A lovely silver pot into which I put...
Well, this is turning out to be a battle, I think, between Derek Nimmo and Kenneth Williams. There's about 2 or 3 points between them, and Derek is still in the lead at the end of that round. Miriam Carlin, will you begin the next round? Chocolate sponge. Will you talk about that for 60 seconds starting now?
And a terrible mess it makes in the bath, too. I personally prefer a coffee loofah with which to scrub my back. But since the subject was chocolate...
Derek, why have you challenged?
Yes,
our hesitation, alas, because we were fascinated with her chocolate sponge in the bath.
Yes, so was I.
And there are 47 seconds for chocolate sponge, Derek, starting now.
I prefer to buy mine from a certain shop in Piccadilly. I go there in a hansom cab with outriders and 2 liveried footmen.
Kenneth, why have you challenged?
Deviation. It's not about chocolate sponge, it's about how he goes to a shop in a hansom
To buy
cab.
my chocolate sponge.
Yes, to buy his
Deviation.
chocolate
To
sponge.
buy my
I
chocolate
don't believe that he
sponge.
goes to buy a chocolate sponge with outriders. I think that is a very devious way of buying any chocolate sponge. So, Kenneth, you have a point, and there are 40 seconds left for chocolate sponge starting now.
Chocolate sponge should be as light as a souffle and coated over with this delicious nectarine, as you might say, and the teeth sink into this succulence, this piquancy, and all the muck clings to your lips, and the gelatinous glue-like sweetness of it.
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
Deviation.
Why?
Well, if it's as light as a souffle, it can't be gelatinous muck glue.
There are 16 seconds. Chocolate sponge, Clement, starting now.
By far the best way of making this is with chocolate sponge powder. You simply purchase the commodity, add water, and pour it into a grease basin whereafter a preheated oven receives the goodies and cooks it in...
I never thought to hear so much twaddle about chocolate sponge in my life. But that is the end, not only of the round, but also the end of the game, alas. And at the end of that game, Miriam Carlin was 4th, Clement Freud for once was 3rd, Kenneth Williams was a very, very keen, good 2nd. But he didn't manage to catch up and beat this week's winner, Derek Nimmo. We do hope you've enjoyed this particular edition of Just a Minute, and from all of us here, goodbye.
The chairman of Just a Minute was Nicholas Parsons. The program was devised by Ian Messiter and produced by David Hatch. We present Kenneth Williams, Derek Nimmo, Clement Freud, and Sheila Hancock in Just a Minute. And as the minute waltz fades away, here to tell you about it is our chairman, Nicholas Parsons.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and welcome once again to Just a Minute. And once more, we have these 4 clever exponents of the game who are going to try and speak for just a minute on some unlikely subject that I will give them without hesitation, without repetition, and without deviation. And if they can do that, they will gain points, and if not, the others will challenge them and try and win points themselves. This is the way we play, this is the way we score, and Clement Freud, will you begin this week? The subject is Bacchus. Can you talk for 60 seconds about Bacchus, starting now?
Bacchus was a Greek all-action, loose-living, wine-swilling god. I suppose if one looked for a similar person today, you would think of Derek Nimmo. Debonair, long, fair hair, always wore new suits. And
Sheila Hancock, you have challenged. Why?
Deviation. Derek Nimmo hasn't got long, fair hair.
I'm not going to judge about Derek Nimmo's hair in public. Right away, I'm going to put the very first decision to our audience. Will you please be the judges of whether Derek Nimmo has long, fair hair? If you think he has, will you cheer? If you think he hasn't, will you boo? And will you all do it together now? Derek, the general opinion is that you haven't got long, fair hair.
I'm not terribly interested either way, Ray.
So what's the decision? So, Sheila, you said it was devious because he has, and he hasn't. So, Sheila, you have won a point, and you take over the subject with 41 seconds left, starting now.
When I...
Derek, you have challenged.
Hesitation.
Yes, I'm afraid there was a hesitation. So, Derek, you gain a point this time, and you take over the subject of backers with 40 seconds left, starting now.
Well, I was standing outside the Mersey Tunnel, you see, and this fellow came over to me and he said, would you mind backing us into the road over there? So I said, fine, yes, I don't mind.
Kenneth Williams, you have challenged. Why?
Because we're not discussing the god Bacchus any longer. We're discussing backing us in, which is not the subject, I think.
We have not established that it's the subject. I actually said Bacchus. And so you can obviously interpret that as the god Bacchus, or you can take it as Bacchus if you wish. So Derek Nimmo has a point because I don't agree with Kenneth Williams' challenge. It means he continues talking about Bacchus for 34 seconds, starting now.
The most beautiful statue I ever saw of Bacchus was in Herculaneum. In one of the temples there, very close to the sea, there's this wonderful statue, which I've already said twice.
Clement Freud, you've challenged.
Repetition of statue.
Repetition, Derek has committed it. So, Clement, I agree with you. You take a point, and you have 27 seconds left for Bacchus, starting now.
Viticulture probably owes more to this particular Greek god than any
Derek Nimmo, why have you challenged?
Repetition of the word Greek god.
Yes, that is right. We had Greek god earlier on. So, Derek, you have another point, and there are 22 seconds left for Bacchus, starting now.
I awfully like the Titian picture of Bacchus. It stands in my hall at the moment, or a replica thereof, with a beautiful green sword.
Clement Freud, you challenged.
Hesitation.
Hesitation, I agree. There are 12 seconds left for Bacchus, Clement, starting now.
Many people think that if this person appeared in this present day and age...
Kenneth Williams, you challenged. Hesitation, I agree.
Williams,
I didn't think we've ever had so many points scored in one round before. So, Kenneth, you've now got a point, and there are 7 seconds left for Bacchus, starting now.
Well, he's usually pictured as a rather hairy, pot-bellied old fool, obviously stoned out of his mind.
That whistle, which was superbly blown by Ian Messiter, tells us that 60 seconds is up, and whoever is speaking then gains another point. In this case, it was Kenneth Williams. So, Kenneth, will you begin this one for us? The subject is, what sends me? You've had a little thought. You've got a look of shock on your face, but could you start on that subject for 60 seconds now?
The most significant thing that ever sent me was an order paper demanding that I appear for a medical for Her Majesty's forces. And it sent me all the way to a castle in Carlisle, and I was made to take my clothes off and go into a cubicle. And they stuck things into me, and they said it was to get a sample of blood, because they didn't think mine looked very healthy. Eventually, they couldn't make up their minds, and I was consigned to Harley Street, if you please, where they said B2, quite definitely, B... Oh, I'm...
Clement Freud, you challenge.
Repetition.
Repetition. The thing to do, Kenneth, is to keep on and hope they haven't noticed your repetition.
I know, it's quite a good anecdote.
Yeah. Well, you went on for about 36 seconds. Clement, there are 24 seconds left for What Sends Me, starting now.
At Fakenham Racecourse last Saturday afternoon at 3:15, a horse wearing my inimitable colours of black and orange with spots on the cap jumped over the last fence, got a lead of 12 lengths over the second, and romped home to win fractionally by a neck.
Kenneth Williams, why have you challenged?
Well, where is this sending him?
It's going to send me to the winner's enclosure if you shut up.
I don't think it's very nice to say to your partner, shut up.
Actually, he's your opponent, you know.
Yes, I've always shown him the greatest courtesy, haven't I? I've always shown him the greatest
courtesy and affection I have.
You say that. They treat you like
Treats you like a load of rubbish. Well, I think it's disgusting.
Anyway, Kenneth, I agree. He took the best part of 20 seconds to establish that it was something that was going to send him. So as he hadn't got there in 20 seconds, I think it's only fair to agree with you, give you a point, and the subject for 6 seconds, what sends me, starting now.
So they got hold of me, you see, and shoved me in this 1,500-weight truck, and they said to me, you're in, B2 or otherwise, mate, and you can walk. Well, I was
Derek Nimmo challenged. We let you go because we wanted to hear what happened, actually. Derek, why do you challenge?
Well, it was some time ago, actually, but my repetition of holding him.
Holding him?
Holding him?
They held him before.
When did they hold him before?
Who did?
Nobody held
Those fellows
The
were
people
holding
who
him
stuck
before.
things
They
into
weren't.
him.
They were shoving things into him before. They weren't holding him. I don't remember you being held before. Were you held before?
No!
You were only held once.
He keeps look at him, he keeps gulping that water. I think he's a bit deranged. He's upset, I think.
You were only held once in Harley Street, weren't you?
Oh, did I say held there? Did I
You
say
were held in Harley Street. Were you held twice in Harley Street?
No.
Kenneth, you have 4 seconds for what sends me, starting now.
So anyway, trudging across this open moor with in each hand the naffy cans of tea.
Well, as Kenneth was speaking at the end of that round, he has got not only another point, but a very definite lead over all the others. Sheila, Hancock, will you begin the next round for us? The subject is how I feel. Oh, don't look like that, because you look as if you feel awful. But, Sheila, will you try and talk on that subject for 60 seconds, starting now?
Usually I stretch out my hand, flex my fingers, and touch whatever I'm feeling. If it's a person, I touch them very gently. If it's a piece of material, I rub them between my hands. Also, there is an emotional sort of feeling. Usually I feel pretty awful.
Very Nimmo, you've challenged.
Well, I challenged before she swore. Hesitation.
Yes, that's the one. Derek, there are 44 seconds left for how I feel, starting now.
I feel at the moment absolutely frightful because I have conjunctivitis of the right eye. Unfortunately, I was lent some liniment or some liquid by the lady sitting next to me to pour into it a moment ago, which has in some sort of measure affected upon it. Hesitation.
Clement Freud, you've challenged.
Hesitation.
Hesitation, Clement, I agree. There are 31 seconds left for how I feel, starting now.
I feel quite astonishingly well. I have 10 toes which have been neatly cut. My feet are well manicured or pedicured, as I think the word should be.
Derek Nimmo, you've challenged. Why?
Hesitation.
Hesitation, I agree. Yes, they're very, very near things, but we've all had one. 22 seconds for you, Derek, with how I feel, starting now.
So sometimes...
Clement Freud, you've challenged. Why?
Hesitation.
Hesitation, Clement. There are 21 seconds left for how I feel, starting now.
Moving gently up my body, my shins are in good shape, my knees...
Hesitation.
Yes, once you started moving up Clement Freud's body, he shouted it.
Anybody would hesitate, let's face it.
In this case, he hesitated himself. So, Sheila, you have another point, and there are 16 seconds left for how I feel, starting now.
In the mornings, I usually feel pretty awful. By coffee break, however, I usually feel a bit better. At lunchtime, I'm usually hungry. At tea time, I feel peckish, but I don't feel too bad.
Derek Nimmo, you've challenged.
Too much feeling.
There's never too much feeling in my life, Derek.
No. I don't think you could have too much feeling where Sheila was concerned, but I do agree. On this particular game and this particular round, we can have too much feeling. So, Derek, you have another point and the subject. 4 seconds left, starting now.
Absolute nausea is the emotion that comes over me at this very moment as I look across at that bearded figure.
Well, at the end of that round, Derek Nimmo, coming in at the last burst there at the end, has got another couple of points, and he is now in the lead. Derek, will you begin the next round for us? The subject is drag. Can you talk on that for 60 seconds, starting now?
There are several meanings to the word drag. One is the apparel worn by a male transvestite. Or, of course, it can be when an entertainer, a comedian, likes to wear ladies' clothes. That is called drag as well, do you see? Now, I had a dresser in the theatre who was awfully kind and helpful, and in the evenings he used to go out and do a little turn in shows. And when he did, he was 6'5", an American, very large. He used to wear these very pretty feminine apparel. Now, I remember one day a Major General came to see me with his good lady, and I'd forgotten it was the night for my friend to go out on one of his little expeditions, and I said, would you care to bring me a drink? And he said, coming, Mr. Nimmo, coming. And in he came, and he had a lovely long gown with a tiara and lovely hair and earrings and beautiful fur coat and stole and long gloves. And the soldier looked at him somewhat agape, and he said, oh, sir, now what would you have to drink? Would you like a gin and tonic, or would you like some whiskey? And he said, well, I just had
Sheila,
I had to do it.
Sheila has another point, and there are 5 seconds left for Drag Sheila, starting now.
You can talk of things being a drag, and I find that life is sometimes a drag. Have I actually won?
That scream of ecstasy came from Sheila, who was feeling something then. She was feeling excited because she thinks it's the first time she's actually been speaking with the whistle went.
It is.
And you're now in second place, Sheila, alongside Clement, who are with one ahead of Kenneth and just behind Derek, who's still in the lead. Putting a bold face on it. That's the subject, and it's your turn to begin, Kenneth. So can you put a bold face on it and try and speak for 60 seconds on that subject, starting now?
This is something one frequently has to do in public, and one of the occasions where it is most noticeable is the interview, which is apparently impromptu, when you suddenly have this thing shot at you from the blue without suspecting it, and it proves to be extremely embarrassing. It happened to me quite recently, and this gentleman, who had written a large tome on the subject of the Irish Rebellion, which took place in 1780, said suddenly to me, why should you, he said, why should you be showing your face here in Ireland after the dreadful things your country's done, you dreadful English people? I said, I'm Welsh, dear. I said, nothing to do with me, I said. But it was putting a bold face, you see what I mean?
Yes.
I put a bold face on it. I thought, I'm not letting them get the better of me, you know, calling me a dirty Englishman and all this filth.
Yeah. Well, yes, I know, but you have gone on for a minute and a half, actually. But about 40 seconds ago, you were challenged. But we were all enjoying it so much that we let you go, because they really did love it.
Oh, well, I was quite worked up anyway. Yes, I was.
But Clement Freud challenged. I hope I can remember why he challenged. Why was it, Clement?
Repetition of suddenlies and dreadfuls. But it was a long time ago.
Yes, it was a long time ago. There were a lot of dreadfuls and a lot of suddenlies. Well, there we are. We have to play the game, and it's quite true. You did say it more than once.
Yes, so he gets the time.
Yes, but you had a huge laugh, and we loved it. So Clement Freud has another point, and there are 21 seconds left for putting a bold face on it, Clement, starting now.
When I was 11 years old, I was given a doll which had a pathetic visage. And my mother said to me, in order to make this doll seem more startlingly real to the other people, it is essential to put upon it a bold face. And we went down Regent Street in order to purchase some impediment to its...
As Clement Freud was speaking again when the whistle went, he gains another point, and he now has a lead of 1 over all the others. Sheila Hancock, will you begin the next round? Here's a delightful subject, arguing with a man. And you should be able to speak about that, seeing you've been in this program so often. Sheila, that's the subject. 60 seconds starting now.
This is a thing that I do my level best not to get into. The best thing for a woman to do when faced with a man in an argumentative mood is to be very feminine, very sweet, and very charming, and say, yes, dear.
Kenneth, why are you
very?
That's 3 very.
Oh, yes, but all right, after this, we're not going to challenge on things like very and it and the and...
Aren't we?
No.
Oh, well, I withdraw it then. Go on.
No,
because you had one against you on suddenly as well.
Oh, well, I withdraw it. I do. I really do. I do. I withdraw the whole thing. Let her go on. No, go on, Nick.
No,
yes, go on. There's got to be
very...
rules. You've got to have your rules.
This isn't a rule.
Yes,
go
on.
The rule is she can't repeat herself, and she did do it 3 times, so, Kenneth, you have a point.
Fair's fair. I'm not going to argue with you, Ken. It's your point.
49 seconds, Kenneth, for arguing with a man, starting now.
Well, of course, it's something I do frequently. I was doing it before this show began. And as a matter of fact, I was...
Sheila, why do you challenge?
Deviation. He was arguing with me and I'm a woman.
she doesn't go on. Oh, she's sharp. Oh.
In the circumstances, it's only fair to give the subject straight back to you, Sheila, with another well-deserved point, and 43 seconds left, starting now.
The awful thing is that men always fall back on saying things that's just like a woman. It's usually something to do with logic. There is this extraordinary idea ingrained in men that women are not logical.
Clement, why have you challenged?
That was too logical.
No, it wasn't. She said logic first, logical secondly.
You see the look on Kenneth Williams' face now. That's the look he had when he was arguing with us before the show. Yes, I'm afraid...
I buzzed before the L came out.
Oh, the deviation.
Yeah. And therefore you deserve not to win the point because you were being too keen.
I give it back.
So Sheila has another point.
Yes, he's contrite now. He's contrite.
That's repetition. 32 seconds left, Sheila, arguing with a man, starting now.
What it means when they say that is that a woman is usually more intelligent than a man, but they have to have these futile things to say to you because they will never admit this fact. What I usually do is to smile and say, yes, I agree with you. All the time, I agree with you because you are the superior...
She agreed too much. So, Clement, you have 14 seconds left for arguing with a man, starting now.
It is absolutely essential that the man you get is a proper sort of gentle person who is going to shout back at you in the right tone of voice. And for this, no one is better than Kenneth Williams, to whom you can go up and say, Williams, you swine, you beast.
Well, Cameron Freud has a slightly larger lead at the end of that round. Derek Nimmo, will you begin the next round? Strange customs. Can you speak on that subject for just a minute, starting now?
Well, of course, a lot of customs are very strange. I think our own ones have become even stranger recently. Now they have the red light and the green light. It does make it awfully difficult to know which one to go through. I was going through the owner the other day, and the fellows came up to me. I was going through the one which you go when you want to not declare, and when you want to...
Sorry, who pressed the buzzer first?
I did.
Sheila, why have you challenged?
Well, he is going through an awful lot,
yes,
isn't he?
Yes, he did actually go through 3 times.
I haven't actually got through yet.
Anyway, the message got through to Sheila, who challenged and gains a point.
I can't think of anything to say. That's
well,
clean.
you hurry up, then.
42 seconds left, Sheila, starting now.
Usually customs have some sort of truth way back in antiquity. For instance, men lifting their hats to women is a custom, and I believe it was something to do with their wigs, but I can't remember what. Also, hold your collar, never swallow, never catch the fever was something that you did when the death carts went by in olden days, because if you didn't, you breathed in disease and probably died. However...
Kenneth, why have you challenged?
I've not come here to listen to a load of filth. A load of filth about disease and bring out your dead. I don't want to sit here after supposed to be entertaining half hour. Never owned a load of morbid filth in my life. I'm surprised at her, a mother at that.
The subject is customs, and it's also strange ones. It's a very strange custom to sit down. It wouldn't be strange to listen to Kenneth Williams going off about the show. So I disagree entirely, Kenneth, but we loved hearing you say it. Sheila has another point, and there are 15 seconds left, starting now.
I did meet a very strange customs officer at London Airport once who had red hair and...
Derek Nimmo, why have you challenged?
Repetition, we've already met him.
It's a different one's not yours.
Withdraw the challenge.
Sheila has another point. There are 11 seconds left for strange customs. Sheila, starting now.
This one had red hair and freckles and very long arms, and he wanted to open my suitcase, although it was patently obvious that I had nothing in. However, he seemed very intrigued by certain... I'm relieved. I didn't want to tell you how strange he was.
When Sheila took over that subject, she said, I can't talk about this. But she managed to do it so successfully, and she was challenged so many times without any success, that she's gained, I don't know, about 5 or 6 points in that round, and now has the lead.
Oh, no. It's great.
Is it nearly the end?
Is it nearly the end? No, it isn't. We're now going to have free speech, which I think is a very apt subject to come at this moment. And Clement Freud, it's your turn to begin. 60 seconds, starting now.
Headmaster, Your Grace, I expect you're wondering how much I've had to pay for these few words with which I am about to address you, and I will answer your query immediately. Nothing. Nothing at all.
Derek Nimmo, why have you challenged?
2-0.
I agree. You take over the subject with 44 seconds left. Free speech starting now.
Of course, it's becoming increasingly difficult in this country to exercise the right of free speech.
Kenneth Williams, why...
Deviation is completely untrue. The right of free speech is certainly not in any way threatened in this country at all.
Well,
Quite right. Absolutely right.
Whether we entirely agree, I do agree that it is not increasingly difficult, as Derek said. That is utterly untrue. That he said free speech was becoming increasingly difficult. That is untrue. So I agree with you, Kenneth. You take the subject, 39 seconds left, free speech starting now.
This is something that has been fought for in Europe by some of the most enlightened liberal statesmen and philosophers for many years, and is an extremely valuable thing. We should none of us take it lightly. We should go down on our knees and thank those wonderful people that made it possible for us to shout the
Clement Freud, you've challenged.
Hesitation.
Yeah, you didn't make it possible for him to shout the odds. So, Clement, I agree with you. You have another point, and there are 12 seconds left for free speech starting now.
It is a very marvellous thing in this country to be able to go to Hyde Park Corner on a Sunday morning, stand on a soapbox.
Sheila, why have you challenged?
Deviation. It isn't actually Hyde Park Corner where people stand on soapboxes.
One can go to Hyde Park Corner. There's no...
Sheila,
the whole point about free speech is you don't have to go to Marble Arch. You can go to Hyde Park Corner.
I was just about to support you in exactly the same way, Clement. He actually
it's
said...
all so exciting. We're coming up to close now,
We're all getting in.
Narrowing.
But that's an interesting, intelligent news item, isn't it, that I gave you there? Because it isn't Hyde Park Corner, is it? Where everybody goes. Everybody always says it's Hyde Park Corner, and it isn't. It's
I
Marble Arch.
know, and they don't know what Marble Arch is for. They don't know that it's to celebrate Nelson's victories, you see. They don't know that. They all think it's just a great marble arch. They think it's made of marble. It's not, Poland stone.
Anyway.
So there's little bits of knowledge.
Freud said it is possible to go to Hyde Park Corner, which is perfectly correct within the game, so he gets another point, and he continues with 6 seconds.
He'd get run over if he did.
Don't get run over the next 6 seconds, Clement, and continue on. Free speech starting now.
Towards the end of the Second World War, soldiers of both victorious armies massed together at the...
Unfortunately, at the end of that subject, we come to the end of this particular show, and I think that was a very apt subject on which to finish this Just a Minute, because if ever there was a program in which free speech was allowed, it is this one. No 4 people are freer in their speech, and the things they say sometimes are quite outrageous, and none of them are censored, so there's a good example. And free speech took Clement Freud at the end of that round into a small lead. Sheila didn't get her last challenge. If she had, she would have won. As it was, she didn't. She came second. 3rd place was Derek, 4th place was Kenneth, and this week's winner was, as I said before, Clement Freud. I'm sorry that is all we have time for, because we have really enjoyed, as always, playing Just a Minute. We do hope that you've enjoyed listening to it. We hope that the audience have enjoyed it as well. And goodbye from us all.
The chairman of Just a Minute was Nicholas Parsons. The program was devised by Ian Messiter and produced by Simon Brent.